Welcome back to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast, where we share games. I'm your host, Zach.
And I'm your host, Tyler. I'm so happy to finally be here doing our second Game of the Year episode.
A whole year.
Yeah, almost. Actually, it's been a little longer than a whole year. Because we did ours, in December last year?
We recorded it in December, I think.
That's right.
But, yeah.
Intentionally doing it
in January.
Mid-January this year to give ourselves a little catch-up.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to talk about.
Yes.
A lot has been happening this year. Some interesting trends for us specifically, just the sort of games that we discovered, sort of games that came out. So, some trends for the industry as well, which we'll talk about, and just new experiences that we're going to be sharing with you, our favorites. It is the Game of the Year episode.
Whoop, whoop.
It is award season. But we're doing something a little different this episode as well. I typically provide the beer. This guy has a closet full of whiskey, gin. We've got some Sotol here. We're not actually drinking gin, right?
I don't think we have any gin.
I say I wouldn't drink it. That's not what I mean, but we just don't have it here.
We don't have any
okay.
here, no.
Whiskeys and then one Sotol, right?
Yes. So we'll have an Irish whiskey, bourbons, Japanese whiskey, and a Sotol.
So take it away, sir.
Yes, so this is actually going to be the most special. We're starting at the most special. This is one you've had before, but this is Redbreast's Small Batch Cask Strength. This is a special release from them. Absolutely gorgeous Irish whiskey. It's going to have all the traditional Irish whiskey tasting notes, green apple-ish and shortbready. Ooh, that looks so good. You can smell it from here. It's delightful.
I can't. Well, maybe. Yeah, I can smell this pretty well. I got COVID a couple months ago and can smell a very select few things, whiskey being one of them, coffee, cigars. So really the only things that matter. I can't smell, propane coming out of my oven, which is bad. I would just die.
Yeah.
That would be terrible.
So
I wouldn't be able
this
to
one's a
tell.
little unique. The reason it's their small batch is it's actually aged in both sherry and bourbon barrels. So you actually will get some vanilla on the end there. Some like red fruits, maybe some cherry, and of course the sherry influence, which I don't really pick up on this. Usually sherry casks are kind of a Highland thing. You'll get nuts and that really deep, weird umami taste at the back of an Oloroso sherry or something. Those will be there.
Interesting,
but
that you mentioned the umami. I wouldn't have, been able to point it out, but it's there. Definitely.
And there's a little butterscotch on this too. This is honestly one of the best Irish whiskeys I've had.
It's great.
Actually, my favorite Irish whiskey is from them. It's their 15 year. So they always do a fantastic job. And now that this has been, it's older. It's, been sitting just barely any left in there. It's been oxidized a little bit. So it's a little sharper, a little harsher.
Definitely.
But, I'm picking up like some spices, like, a little bit of cinnamon, I guess, but like cinnamon sugar, like a weird kind of.
I suppose, yeah,
like
I
a sweet
wouldn't say
spice.
Cinnamon. I think it's very strong in the vanilla. I'm not getting the cinnamon. The umami, vanilla, butterscotch. You're saying, yeah, I'm not really seeing cinnamon. We are gonna get some spice soon.
Yeah, we are. Woo boy! But glad we get to break this out and finish it.
And tell everybody about the pretentious glasses you have here.
Oh, yes. For those listening, I have my Glencairn glasses out.
Or watching. A lot of people might not know what these are. I didn't until I saw one, until you brought them out.
Yeah, this is a Glencairn glass. It's used for specifically whiskey tasting. Since whiskey obviously has a higher alcohol content than, a wine or a beer, you can smell it correctly in an open glass, but this helps. It basically, the distribution of the vapors makes it easier to get the smells of the whiskey, the aroma out of it without having that nose burning sensation. So good. Glad we got to break that out. Another thing I want to mention as we get going here is we're going to try something new for the format as well this year. We have it split into 3 moments. We have section 1, an intermission, and section 2. So if you're only interested in one or the other, you can skip around, watch as you like. But section 1 is going to be our year. Unpatched, our community, us, everything we played. That can be as old as possible. It can be brand new. doesn't matter. Covers everything that we as a community have played this year.
So really the games of our year.
Yes.
Not the game of 2021.
And I know not everybody likes listening to those, so we also have in section 2, 2021. It will be only 2021 games that came out this year. Tyler and I do not typically review early access games, or count early access games until they've reached the full release. So example, Curse the Dead Gods got most of its attention last year, maybe even I think a little of the year before as well, but it came out this year, so it would only be a contender for this year. That's an example. Another note to know, we also don't usually count games that we've played before. So obviously this year, my personal game of the year is Mega Man Battle Network 3, because it's the top 5 favorite game of all time for me, and I played it again this year for the 6th time. So I'm not counting that. That doesn't come in here at all. Like, that's just not as interesting to talk about, right? So it has to be games that are our first time through or first time completing, maybe. Maybe we've played some before. That's kind of a loose rule. And then finally, we'll have an intermission section where Tyler and I will retroactively provide Unpatched Game of the Year for a randomly rolled year. We'll basically randomly select a number between 0 and 19. We'll discuss, whatever comes up, it'll be 2000 blank that, right? So if it's a 6, 2006. And so we'll talk about that year, if there's anything special for us from that year, significance of that year, anything, major happened. I know Tyler, 11 is a lot of the indie games.
11 and 12.
Yeah, 11 and 12. So that'll be, things like that. And then we will pick Unpatched Game of the Year. You'll see live us arguing over Unpatched Game of the Year for that year.
Which, what is it, 2009 maybe? Braid came out. We'll have to engage in fisticuffs.
And I don't know off the top of my head, right? We'll have to pull it up. I'll pull my laptop over. We'll look up the year. It'll be happening live, so that'll be fun.
Now that Game of the Year website is not going to be a good tool for those earlier years. We'll just have to look at general releases for that year because they just weren't getting as much attention. There weren't as many awards. Most of the awards in 2006 went to Oblivion. Most of the awards in 2011 went to Skyrim. But there's a lot coming out in 2011 that wasn't
Skyrim.
That would, if they came out today, would get way, way more attention. Even against something like Zelda or Last of Us 2.
Yeah.
If Braid came out today, it would get way more attention than it did.
Of course.
But let's go ahead and take it away, man.
Let's get started. So this is going to be the Unpatched 2021 year. So not games came out this year, just our year. We're going to be talking a couple categories. We'll be talking, some trends that happened for us, things that we intentionally made happen, things that stood out to us. But we'll also be doing some recurring segments. And we've come up with what I would like to make our primary segment every year. The first thing we start with, and that is your favorite share, because at Unpatched, we share games.
We share what we love with who we love.
That is correct. That is what we're all about. So
top 3 favorite shares.
Yep. Go ahead and I'll start, actually.
Sure.
I'll start. For me, again, I mentioned already, one of my top 5 favorite games of all time is Mega Man Battle Network 3. Part of what makes me love it so much, too, is that nobody talks about that game. Like, it's a really weird pick to be in my top 5, but it's one that's pretty much never not been in my top 5.
Yeah.
I've always loved it, and I got to share that with Tyler this year and the community, so I'm glad that got some voice. I think it might be our most listened to episode, actually.
Wow. Oh, yeah, you did a lot of advertising on the subreddit, right?
Yeah, I tried on the sub, and then we did a little advertising campaign on Instagram. So it got some traction, got to share it with some folks. I love Mega Man Battle Network 3. And getting to share it with Tyler, just so he can finally, it's the only one on my, maybe top 10, 20 that he has no experience with. So being able to kind of put that on his radar and, this exists.
And we didn't include this category last year, but it's similar to Transistor for me. Finally got to share Transistor with you. Been preaching about that for, 7 years now?
Yeah.
It came out in 2014, and I have loved it ever since.
As you should.
And got to share that. Yes, I love Transistor so much. So number 1 for me is a very recent share. I went on vacation in December, and a cousin of mine stayed over. We don't talk very much. I say cousin, a family friend, a child of a family friend. But we don't really talk very much. And at Thanksgiving, we were just talking about games, and he was telling me how much he loved the Dark Souls series. Well, really, all the sort of Soulsborne games. He doesn't have a PlayStation, but he got PlayStation Now to play, just so he could play Bloodborne on his PC at 18 frames, 720p, and played it twice.
Good.
Because he loves it so much. And then we also started talking about one of my favorite games from this year, which we'll definitely talk about later. Well, not from this year. I just started playing it. But Risk of Rain 2. And the first thing I thought about was Returnal. When he comes over, does some house sitting for us while I'm on vacation, he should play Returnal. And I was telling you about that. I was in the process of telling you that I recommended Returnal to him, and I'm excited for him to play it. I'm like, oh, dude, he loves Bloodborne and Dark Souls so much, and he's been playing so much Risk of Rain 2. Oh, you should share Returnal.
Like I beat him to it.
Yeah. For some
that's
reason,
what I said.
It just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But not only did he finish Returnal very quickly, actually, he also played Hades and loved that. Finished Hades as well. And loved both of those immensely. So I was very happy to share those. They're two very special games. And just, I also really like, it's a bit of satisfaction for me to pinpoint something so perfectly.
Yeah, and when they respond in kind that way, you're like, yes.
I've achieved.
Victory. Share successful. So my next pick is a game you all know that I love quite a lot, is Everhood. And so I found a video from RPG Monger because I was looking at Battle Network stuff, and I saw he did a review of Everhood. So I started the video and I stopped it. I'm like, this game looks really, really cool. Let me kind of deal with, play through it, figure out what it's like. And before I do, I show it to Nick. I'm like, hey, Nick, my younger brother. Of course he would love this game. It's right up his alley. It's weird, quirky, very, fresh combat system. And it's like, hey, you should check this game out. He downloaded it immediately and started playing it. And he's like, what are you doing? I thought you were playing it already. Let's go. Let's play it right now. And so we played it in tandem with each other and shared it back and forth. And yeah, that was a really cool time.
I also, you recommended it to me. I picked it up right away as well. It didn't hit home with me as much as it did you. It wasn't as much of an emotional resonance, but it's definitely something wholly unique, very special, and as we mentioned last week, is having a sort of different discussion and a more, I don't know if I'd say important discussion, but certainly a more like heady discussion than some of the other games in the genre, and then also just comments on the genre itself and flips it on its head, makes the typical players of these kind of games the bad guys. I would argue the bad guys, the selfish people. In this instance, it's something very unique.
Agreed.
I was happy to play it as well.
What you got?
Number 2, a share with you, and that is Prince of Persia 2008 from our 3 platformer series. I played this game twice in the past, a little bit after it came out, and for a long time, it's been regarded as one of my favorite games. I have regarded it as, and I've been preaching about it for a while, and it's hard to recommend. It's hard to get people to look at that game, hear what's his name, the voice actor,
Nolan North.
Yeah, hear Nolan North's voice and sort of be turned off just because of the setting and the gameplay style and just Nathan Drake.
Just Nathan Drake.
Yeah, that's all. He's not even doing anything else, and he was told to specifically do that. He said, like, maybe this is not a good idea. I should try something else. Or maybe you should find someone else. And they said, no, we just want Nathan Drake. So it's a hard sell to people. But you absolutely loved this game.
Loved it.
And I don't know how you loved it so much because you played it in the worst possible state. He played it on PS3, which is fine. It runs well enough on PS3. That's where I played it both times previously. And most of the way through this time around. And his PS3, though, something was going on, I think, with the disc. There weren't scratches on the disc or something, but it just was not reading properly because we put my disc in there. I've got like 3 copies or something, and it was working well. So, but you played it all the way through.
Yeah, like
at a fraction of the frame rate, the colors
it would
were off.
Drop to 10. Like it was weird coloration.
I don't know how you did it,
but I just thought, well, this is how this game performs on PS3. Like,
no,
I'll have to talk about it.
No,
but regardless, I loved it.
Oh, and the timing was off for the combat.
Oh, that was really hard.
So even in that state,
pre-input everything.
Yeah, even in that state, you loved it. So I bet if you play it again, either on PC, which it looks fantastic on PC.
Oh yeah, I was watching
have 4K textures.
Matt McMuscles play it on PC.
It looks really good.
Oh my god,
that's where I play. I say most of it actually. I played like a little over half of it there. I went back and played some of the areas on PS3 that I didn't get to on my PC playthrough, but I was on PS3 just so I could do the epilogue, which is not on PC. It's only on consoles, only DLC. So maybe actually, if you're interested in that game, pick up the DLC before the PS3 store. Excuse me. The PS3 store goes down whenever that happens. It's inevitable. They sort of backed off a bit, but it's inevitable.
It will happen.
It will. So that's my second favorite share.
That's good. So my number 1 favorite share this year is my wife has been getting more and more into games. She always liked watching people play games, and she'd watch me play them, but she's been finding a couple games, that she really likes. The casual stuff's how she got started, Animal Crossing, and Animal Crossing. She played some Paper Mario, Origami King. She played that all the way through, actually. She played.
As a kid, she played a lot of Resident Evil, right?
Yes, she did play a lot of. So she doesn't. She's enough of a gamer to be competent.
Is she a real gamer?
She's a real gamer. She's enough of a gamer to be competent with some of the more not just throwing a brand new person into a video game kind of thing. I will say though, she's gotten so much better and keeps getting better. I keep telling her she will be beating Hollow Knight soon. Like it will happen. She will beat Hollow Knight. I know it will happen.
I think she'll like it. The characters will be able to pull her through a lot.
Oh yeah,
because she's a sucker for cute characters.
Oh yeah,
it could be a complete trash game, and she's
but
gonna play it if there's a fox.
Oh, done.
Yeah,
done.
A fox or a bird. Like Tunic, we talked about Tunic last week. That game could be utter trash, and she'll play it 4 times.
Oh yeah,
because it's fox.
Yeah, it's great, and that's
so that will help with Hollow Knight a lot.
Yeah. She's got great taste, though. In fact, my younger brother will take her recommendation over mine or Tyler's any day. So yeah, she beat Death's Door. She's getting really good at games, but my favorite share this year is with her because we built her a gaming PC for her birthday, and we played through the entirety of the base game of Monster Hunter World together. I think I was at 7.
Like in a week and a half, right?
No. It took a while.
Through?
It took a while. I think it took us, 2 or 3 months. But yeah,
okay.
We played 72 hours of that game together. I think she has almost 100 in it, actually.
That's a lot of game.
We did it, and we had a blast. That game, that game's good, man.
It's very good.
That game's really
the
good.
group I was playing with fell off because they had already beaten the game. Nick and one of his friends, they had already beaten it, and then I finally got it, and they started playing some stuff with me, and we all just fell off last year around the beginning of the cast. But I see it for what it is. It's very good. I did have fun, a lot of fun with it. Did you know Geralt is in the game?
Oh yeah, I played that mission.
You did?
It's fantastic. It's so much fun. You fight a Leshen, and it's Leshen? Yeah, that's right, a Leshen. And it's a good boss fight. Like it's really good. It's tough though. It's tough. But you get Igni at the end. His little fire spell.
Can you use it outside of that mission?
Yeah, outside of that mission. So you get Igni. It's really useful actually.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I like it quite a bit.
He's been in a few games.
Yeah,
he's been in Soul Calibur. Monster Hunter. Has he been in anything else?
I don't know. I'd have to think about it. Look it up. But yeah, that's my number 1 favorite share. We kicked that game's behind.
Are you guys gonna go through? Was it Frostborn or something?
Iceborne? Yeah. Oh, definitely. We actually started it, but we were a little. We were afraid of getting burnt out, so we stopped. And we're gonna come back to it this year. We're gonna come back to it this year. It's much harder. Iceborne's much harder, intentionally. So yeah,
it's for the experienced players. That's fine.
Yeah, so we're excited.
Number 1 for me is a little collaboration we did earlier in the year with it was early in the year, right?
Middle of the year.
Okay. With the Gameresque podcast. Not sure where those guys went. They got a little busy, I guess. I haven't seen an episode from them in a while.
We miss you.
It's been a while since I checked back, but there was a long gap between episodes if there is one now. But we played 2 games with them. We did something very fun. First of all, let's put that into context. They created a like a sports bracket.
It's the best idea ever.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Created a sports bracket and put games of the year, the game of the year from I think the past 20 years, right?
2005 through
15.
Yeah.
So 20 years, right? I mean, up to 2020, so 15 years.
Yeah, 15 years.
So 2020. I believe 2020. Yeah, Last of Us 2 was on there.
Yeah.
We had a big argument about that.
We did.
And I said words.
Yeah. We've all been there.
Yeah. 15 years of games. And they broke it down like a sports tournament bracket based on some criteria that I'm not qualified to talk about.
Some cool people talk. Like people who watch sports and do cool things.
And I was listening to their podcast because I was so interested, and I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but they have very different opinions than Zach and I, because, and it's the name of the cast, they own this, they aren't gamers like Zach and I. We are, if you want to get if you want to get pretentious about it, we're like ludophiles or something. Yeah. A lot of people go see Mission Impossible and every Marvel movie. Those are fun. Whoa. They have their place, but not everyone goes to see the next not everyone goes to see Licorice Pizza, which actually I've been hearing a lot of bad things about that, which makes me more excited to see it.
Yeah, more excited to see it.
More excited to see it. But, they don't go see The Master, or not everyone goes to see Lincoln or something. That's sort of where we reside. Reside is what I meant to say. We have this fine middle ground between pretentious asshole and a casual player, and they're very casual players. So they built this top 10 with some opinions that I thought were just flat out wrong. And I don't mean like they were just literally uneducated. Like they didn't know that Portal 2 was not just more Portal 1. They had no idea.
Yeah.
Because they hadn't played it. They didn't know about...
They don't sit around and do 4 hours of YouTube research on the context of Valve and within history. Or, whatever. Things that we spend our dumb time doing.
But then there's things that I skip that other people absolutely love, like Spider-Man. So we got together with them. First, we did our own version of that and came to a very different conclusion. They completely wrote off. The first time it came up in the tournament bracket, completely wrote off Shadow of the Colossus. That was our number 1.
Yeah, that was.
And then was it Skyrim or Witcher 3 for them?
There's Skyrim.
Yeah, so Skyrim ended up being number 1 for them, which was out pretty quick for us. When went up against Portal 2, and we gave the win to Portal 2.
Yes,
which got in the top 3, didn't it?
Portal 2 was the number 1 because it was split up it was divided into like 4-year chunks basically. So you had your 05 through 09 and or no 05 through 08 and I don't know, whatever.
It was broken up in some way.
It was 4 chunks. Whatever those evenly divide into. And Portal 2 was the second chunk and it won its whole category.
Yeah.
It even beat it beat a lot of very, very good video games,
including Skyrim.
But what's funny is that was the least argued one for us. Like, it's Portal 2, right? Oh yeah, dude, Portal 2.
Yeah, I totally thought I was gonna have to make a huge case for it, and you just agreed.
We're just like, oh no, it's definitely Portal 2.
Yeah.
It's great.
So we got together with them, and after doing that episode, they shared a game with us. Zach had played Spider-Man. What was it? 2018, 2017. Whenever that Spider-Man came out on PS4.
18, I think.
And I had not completely written it off. So they shared that with us, and we shared Portal 2 with them, and they loved it. They saw it for what it really was, and it's got to be one of the funniest games ever made. It's a
so
true
funny
comedy game, and such a smart puzzle game. And going back to play it again, so I think this was my 3rd playthrough in many years. I played it twice in 2010 or whenever it came out, and loved it. And it just solidifies it as one of the greats, one of the absolute greats.
Yeah. And it's like when you see, these, top 50 games of all time list, IGN does theirs however many years, top 100. They redo it every couple of years, maybe every year, I don't know. But, this last year it was Portal 2 was like number 3. I'm like, yeah, Yeah, that makes
That seems fine. Like,
Yeah.
I might disagree at number 3, but I'm not gonna make a fuss about it.
Yeah,
No.
you're like, no, this makes sense.
Game Informer, number 1 being A Link to the Past. That's complete BS.
Yeah, we will argue that all day.
That is the dumbest decision
If you
ever.
put Portal 2 at number 1, I'll be like, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, at least it's a decent decision. I would still agree with number 1. But I put Tetris number 1. Like, I have to discuss everything with that caveat. Tetris is removed from the conversation.
Yes.
This is not a joke. This is not hyperbole. I think the best games ever made in human history are Go, and then way below Go is chess, Tetris, and poker in that order. I put Tetris as one of the greatest human creations of play. It's nearly perfect. It is perfect. Anyhow.
Thank God we didn't play it this year then.
Yeah. Tetris Effect came out in 2018, Zach. We don't have to talk about it.
So
if we roll 2018, we're gonna have a fight.
I actually don't think so, because I have a very deep respect for Tetris Effect. What I've played, what I know about the game, I have a very deep respect for Tetris Effect. You could probably win that conversation.
But what else came out? I don't know.
That God of War.
Red
Dead Redemption 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa, I've not finished either of those games, and you love them both.
Yeah, they're
immensely.
both very, very good. If we roll 2018, I think I would have very little issue with you giving it Tetris Effect, actually.
Interesting. I think Tetris...
For a very weird reason, but yeah.
Tetris Effect is not only in my top 10, also without hyperbole. This is separate from just the game of Tetris. I mean, the full package of Tetris Effect, I believe is one of the greatest digital creations. Like as just a piece of art, not just a game of Tetris. I think it's one of the most brilliant pieces of digital art.
It's genuinely an experience.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah,
it is.
It's really good.
Moving on, though.
Those are our top 3. They just ruined everything. Everybody knows what we'll pick for 2018.
Yeah. We'll just re-roll and talk about it next year when we actually have viewers.
Yeah, correct.
So moving on from that is going to be a staple. That's the whole point of this podcast. And if you come join us, we want to share more things with you. And maybe next year we'll sort of phrase that differently also, or have a second iteration of that. The things we're most excited to have shared with us.
That's a great, yeah.
Battle Network 3 would have been up there for me.
Yeah.
And I don't know what else, actually.
Well, I mean, this next year you're going to play my number 1 favorite game of all time.
And then as we get more viewers...
For me, it's Chrono Cross. That's the number 1 thing I'm most excited to be shared.
Okay. And that will be my number 1 share as well. Yeah, Chrono Cross, it might not be in my top 10 anymore, but has been for many, many years.
Yeah,
many years.
That's your number 1 favorite JRPG, right?
Yeah, and I haven't played as many as...
But you played Persona 5 this year, too.
I did...
Okay, let's not go too deep.
Let's go ahead and move this on, because we have only just gotten started.
Yes. So right now we have best game you didn't finish. Tyler, what is your honorable mention for best game that you did not finish this year?
All of the games we played this year, because I don't finish games ever. No, that's my New Year's resolution, I guess, is to finish more games, not play more games. I'm happy to play fewer games, because I think I clocked in at 63 or something.
Yeah.
That I gave an honest shake to. If I play a 7-hour game for 45 minutes, I don't count that. But if it's a 7-hour game and I play 2.5 hours, I can talk about it intelligently. I know I don't like it or whatever, so I count that. I gave a fair shake to, I think, 63 games this year. But I've got some shame on here. Number 2, my honorable mention being Majora's Mask.
Oh, yeah. That was such
I'm right there near the end. I got tied up with both of these for something else. I think I was moving. I think I was moving right around the time of Majora's Mask. And then we played short handheld games intentionally after that, so I could be able to finish them. But Majora's Mask, unfortunately, I didn't finish it. I did get very near the end. I was in the last temple, or walking into the last temple, right there outside of it, and then whatever the actual end game is, I would have had to do. But I had 3 of the 4 things you have to collect.
Yeah. So for me, on the Zelda, bouncing off that Zelda idea, is Okami. I did not. To my wife's chagrin, this is a top 5 favorite game for my wife. Her favorite games of all time are, in no particular order, Resident Evil 4, Okami.
Oh, you got to get her VR.
Yeah, Spiritfarer. A few. Maybe Death's Door now. She really liked Death's Door.
I bet.
Yeah, she really
I bet she's been preaching about that.
Nick
pretty loud.
Nick, it's in his top 15.
That's crazy.
You got to remember, he's all about Zelda. Like that Zelda formula, like that just speaks to him more than.
Well, I will play it as soon as it comes in. I will find time to play it.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be that high for me by any means, but that's a really good game, guys.
Yeah, there's no way it will possibly breach that for me.
Yeah,
but
it's really good.
I wrote it off for the wrong reasons, and I'm bummed I didn't play it.
Well, Okami is definitely one of the best games I've played. That's an easy top 25 for me, and I haven't finished it. It's a long game.
Yeah,
it's over 30 hours easy. It's a very long game. I'm well over halfway through, but just got caught up with things I needed to play for the cast. I actually played most of it during the freeze. I would just handheld. I beat.
Well,
Link Between
if
Worlds
you go
and Okami.
back to it, let's try to fit it in for the cast because I've always wanted to play it.
Okay.
I started it, and it was too. I didn't realize I signed up for that. I didn't sign up for that, so I stopped.
It's so huge
because I did want to really dive in, but I couldn't at the time.
I would say it's better than almost any 3D Zelda game, honestly, because it's as good in all the normal Zelda aspects and has better combat. So that's just biological.
Better than Wind Waker?
I think so. Better game?
Do you mean a better game, or you personally like it more?
I would say if it was a Zelda game, and we're not including Breath of the Wild because it's weird.
Yeah, I set it apart completely.
I would say the way I would rank the Zelda games in my top 3 would be Wind Waker, Okami, and then probably...
In terms of your
Majora's
favorite,
Mask.
Or what is objectively a better game?
For me, it's about... Those are pretty blended ideas, but I would say I think Okami is a better game than Twilight Princess. I think it's a better game than Ocarina of Time. Maybe a better game than Majora's Mask, but it's a weird comparison because they're doing so many different things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think because it does all of the normal Zelda beats just as good as any Zelda game. The charming characters, the weird environments, the dungeons, the puzzles. But then you have what I consider far more interesting combat that's still very simple and easy to grasp. It's more engaging. Like, I like fighting. In most Zelda games, do a quick fight, kill something, move on. So that'd be what gives it the edge. But Wind Waker has the benefit of being, in my opinion, a near-perfect video game.
Yes.
That is in my official top 10 favorite games of all time, it's not me just, making a fake top 10 that's 30 games long. In my official top 10, Wind Waker's on that list. Wind Waker is a masterpiece.
I don't know if it is. I should make that. I should solidify that.
Yeah,
I will after our playthrough of Catherine, whenever we fit that in, because I think with a third playthrough, it'll be there. Yeah. And you'll be able to tell me why. I really cannot tell you. I want him to play it just because, I want to share it. That's a big deal, but I can't quantify what about Catherine I love so much. And I love all of it. But there's something there that I've tried. I've watched videos about it. I cannot quantify. What about that game I love so
That's what
much.
Drives me to write usually is I need to find out why I like this.
Maybe you can do that for me.
But yeah, for me it's Okami. Just sum of that up. So what's your number 1 pick? What is the...
Number 1 is Truly Shameful, and I should actually take it off my list. I played enough to be able to speak about it intelligently, but I wouldn't say that I have played Silent Hill 2. We had some family friends visiting during that week, and I hung out with them a little bit. I did set time aside for this, but there were other things that came up. I think I was transitioning jobs at that point. I couldn't find the time to play Silent Hill 2, and I'm so bummed about it.
Yeah, that's such a Tyler game.
It would have been here in the next category, and it's a game I really, really enjoyed. It's got some weird, quirky things going on, and the first one was such a letdown. It's so hard to play. It's nearly impossible to play. I mean, I can give grace to stuff like that.
I finished it. I will never be able to tell you how.
That's crazy, dude.
I finished it.
It's
Silent Hill 1.
So hard to play. Silent Hill 2, is doing what Silent Hill 1 is doing, but cleans it up and makes it playable. It's still very rough around the edges.
And I'd say the pacing is much better in Silent Hill 2. Like, this is something I talk about a lot, is the pacing of a game. And I think Silent Hill 1 feels very choppy. It's a PS1 game from a very small team, you know, but...
I did think the hotel or the apartment complex was a little long in the tooth.
Sure, and I
Silent
wouldn't
Hill
call it
2.
one of the best paced games ever, but it doesn't ever feel disjointed to me. Like, Silent Hill 2 doesn't feel disjointed. There are definitely
at least
sections
what I
that are
played
too
wasn't.
long.
I got past the apartment complex, and then there's that long road to, what is it, a resort or something that you're going to, a hospital maybe? I don't know.
In Silent Hill 1?
No, 2.
Oh, 2? Oh, yeah, the hospital.
Is it a hospital?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's always a hospital. Silent Hill. It's always a hospital.
Okay, fair enough. So, like, through the police station,
Yeah.
through the apartment complex, I was on that long road to the hospital, I guess.
And really clarifying thing for me, I realize Silent Hill 1 is supposed to feel disjointed, because it's supposed to feel very dreamy, right? But, I mean, like, actually playing that game is disjointed. Like, because the same jarring transitions happen in Silent Hill 2, but I'd say it's more effective. It communicates something a little bit, like, I feel like I get where it's going. Silent Hill 1, I sometimes just feel like, okay, let's move to the next set piece or game part.
In 2?
In
Or
1. In
oh,
1.
okay.
In 1, yeah.
You know, a little bit of praise for 1. That cinematic opening is still, like, even though it's
One
ancient,
guy animated every
ancient 3D
single thing.
animation, and that's really cool.
Yeah, because I checked on that after our last conversation, and sure enough, like, one guy would just stay up late and made every FMV in that whole thing.
I bet every game studio has that one person that just, like, lives under the desk. I've heard people.
Yeah.
I've gone to enough meetups in Austin and things like that. I did for several years, especially when I was in school. There's a lot of meetups here. I've met a lot of developers in Austin, and every studio seems to have that one guy that has a blanket under his desk, just pulls a laptop up and does work.
Hopefully
through the night.
unmarried guy. Like,
Probably.
poor family.
Probably, typically, never mind. I'm not saying any of that.
Yeah, but it's...
But, you know, guys that just love this so much.
yeah.
And
We
you know,
have network engineers like that. That's my career as a network engineer, and you always have that one guy on your team who breathes networking. It's all he can think about. My last job, it was shout out Robert Esterov. He's a guy from Georgia. He lives in the country Georgia, and he lives in the UK. The guy works from 8 a.m. to like 11 p.m. every day, and he has a family. He just, you know, goes spend time with his family after that. When he takes time off, he's unreachable, deservedly.
yeah, fair enough.
Deservedly, but he knows everything about networking. Like, just, it's all he thinks about. And when we'll come, hey Robert, here's a problem. He's like, yes, a problem? And he'll just spend the next hour just spewing ideas at you, and you're like, I had maybe one.
And these
idea.
kind of people, like, earn a level of respect that skirt all the rules of
yeah.
the job. Like,
Yeah.
like one guy that I'm thinking of that literally slept under his desk often, at least according to the heads of the studio that I talked to, smaller studios here in Austin, would just take like 5 days off at a time. Just tell the boss. He just wouldn't be there for 5 days. Unreachable. Not really. It didn't really have PTO, but just didn't show up. But nothing could be said because he did 3 weeks of work in 8 hours while everybody else is trying to catch up with the entire team trying to catch up with his work.
Some people are
like,
just
whatever, go
brilliant,
take a
man.
month off. You've already done 3 months of work.
You've literally finished your whole career in 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, it's incredible. Real quick, before we move on, I am going to whip out the Japanese whiskey. This is one we've had on the cast before, actually. This is Nika Coffee Grain Whiskey.
When did we have whiskey on the cast?
It was a while ago now. This one's a little old. So this is going to be this is going to have a lot of bourbon properties. It is going to be very corny, for lack of a better term. I don't know how much corn's actually in it, but yeah, it's very good. Yeah, this is a delightful one. I enjoy it quite a bit, actually. I prefer their coffee, because this is coffee, Coffey. This is their grain. I prefer their malt. They have one that's just malt, coffee malt.
Now, if you give me the shorter pour, which I'm not complaining about at all.
Oh, I just poured.
you got to drink it faster so
Okay,
we can
I
move
will.
on.
I will.
Because I already drink way faster than
I can
you.
give you some if necessary. This is gonna be a lot more bourbony, but with that, kind of thinner, less full body Japanese.
Oh,
whiskey
interesting. It's
profile.
very different than the other one. Is it pretty harsh? 'Cause of
It's
the
so
age?
mellow. It's so mellow.
Okay.
Like it's not gonna have any harshness on it. It's very mellow. But
Yeah.
so
even with the age and interesting.
yeah,
Why doesn't it have?
because it's Japanese whiskey. I think that's the main reason. I don't know why actually, but I'm sure it's something there. So my number one pick is one you will be hearing about next year, and that is Rain World. Rain World is one of the most special video games that has ever been made. There's nothing like it. I will not say anything about it because I'm going to have so much to say during next game of the year.
So you played about half of it in like November.
Yeah, I played about half of it. I don't know. I think it was September actually, and things came up. I was mesmerized. I started writing about it. Something came up. I've started playing it again now with the intention of finishing it. I'm nearing the end. I'm in some of the later areas that are just crazy. Like there's constantly throwing new ideas. As a platformer, there's nothing like it.
Maybe I'll try to find time for it because I didn't know you were playing this. I've wanted to play this since it came out.
Yeah, I had no idea.
I've been so interested in this game and just have not found. I think when it came out, I was sort of on a hiatus. I was playing a lot of Magic the Gathering, a lot of board games, and I do that often. I'll go really hard in Magic for 9 months, then I won't play again for 5 months. I'll be playing video games. That cycle has not really happened since we started the cast, so in about a little over a year and a half. But I haven't had time to play a bunch of things that aren't on the schedule. Very few things, and when I do, they're usually super short indie games or something I can play on the go. I have this on PS4. I don't think I want to play it on Switch. I want to see everything.
You should. I will say if you are going to play it, do PC or PS4 or PlayStation. Is it on Xbox?
I don't know.
If it is, you can do it. I'm sure it'd be
Don't
fine
play it
there
on
as well.
Switch?
Don't play it on Switch for one reason only, and that is some of the later areas, the frame rate does drop. Unfortunately.
Goodness.
It does drop.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah, and there's a lot going on.
Like, this isn't the PS3, is it? What, like, I really don't know. I've not taken the time to do the research either, but why is it so hard to get decent ports
I don't know.
on the Switch?
I don't know.
Like, why? It's baffling to me that the Sexy Brutale has nearly a minute load times in
And
some places.
really bad
I might be exaggerating a bit there, but bad
The
performance
for Sexy
all around.
Brutales on Switch is very poor. Like, I'd argue unplayable.
Close to it.
Yeah, I'd argue nearly unplayable. Thankfully, Rain World, I've had almost no issues until some of these later areas where there is a little bit of choppiness right when you load in.
Even Moondawn, we played Moondawn recently. I don't know what the alternative is like. I haven't played it on PC or console. I mean, I'm playing it on Switch, but robust console. The pop in for that is crazy. You could be like from here to the camera, the tripod won't appear until you step one step closer. The pop in's crazy in that game.
Yeah, thankfully it's not a game that matters too much. Thankfully, but because in Rain World every frame counts. Every frame counts. It is incredibly difficult. A very indifferent game on purpose. It is trying to make you feel a very specific way and does not pamper at all.
I watched some reviews on it. I watched some critique on it. Some of the video essays and stuff a long time ago. And what you're saying is the stuff that drew me in. You just picked it up on a whim for no reason.
For
I don't
no
know why
reason.
you picked it up.
I think I scrolled past a thumbnail. I'm like, that game looks interesting. And then I looked at an image for it. I'm like, yeah. And this out of the 10,000 other games that happens for, I was like, I'll buy that. And I just bought it and started playing it.
Yeah. If you had mentioned it even once,
Yeah,
we would have put it on the schedule somewhere.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll try to find time and we can have a fair discussion about it later on. But
Yeah, it's a very
I'm
special
happy
game.
that you liked it. That makes me even more excited to play it. And maybe I'll pick up the PS4 copy.
Yeah, I did manage to get the limited run PS4 copy. It was expensive. Great seller on YouTube. Little Doughboy. He's a good guy.
Little Doughboy.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Seems like a younger dude, but he was a delightful seller. Like he, little notes and stuff. Like
cool.
He was very very responsive. Hey, can't ship this till tomorrow. I'll be shipping it tomorrow. You should get it by then. And you're like, you go. Like,
Yeah.
you do it, man.
Yeah, I have sold a few lots on eBay. Well, not lots, they're individual items, but I've pulled 10 things off the shelf or so and sold them a couple times on eBay, and I try to do that, be very responsive. But then I'm really bad about leaving reviews when I buy stuff.
Oh, I do it religiously now. I now recognize how important it is, and
I gotta do it more.
Yeah, please
because you lose time. Like you only have
yes,
like 2 months, and sometimes I just forget about it because I buy so much, too much. Yeah. Anyway, I need to be better about that. I really do.
So let's move on. Next category, we got best classic cleanup. So I'll start this one. For me, it was Majora's Mask. So this is a game that for me, it's one of the classics that I just had never played. It was one of my shame list games, And I played a couple games like that this year they were pretty. Silent Hill 2 is a great example. Both Silent Hills games that were on my shame list. But for me, I think it's Majora's Mask because I don't like Ocarina of Time. Something that listeners probably know about me already. I don't enjoy Ocarina of Time. I respect Ocarina of Time. I think it has aged horribly and is not a fun game, or even a good one a lot of the times, which is sacrilege. I know. So I had put off Majora's Mask for a while, but was always interested. Majora's Mask is incredible. Majora's Mask is like my favorite Zelda games are Breath of the Wild, Wind Waker, and now Majora's Mask. Like, no question. It beat out Twilight Princess for me, which was my first 3D Zelda game.
Mine too.
That's quite a thing to say, like that it beat that for me. This is my first Zelda. That's a special experience, but that's how good Majora's Mask is. It's a very good video game. So I'm glad to have finally cleaned that up. Check out that episode. That's one of my favorite episodes. It's the Majora's Mask episode.
I haven't listened to it. I mean, I don't go back and listen to our episodes.
I don't often. Sometimes
but I don't remember much about it. I listened to it back then, but yeah, I don't remember much about that conversation. I do remember loving the game. So unique in that entire, I wouldn't say genre, but just that series. I mean,
yeah,
it's very unique and definitely the superior Zelda game. I don't get it. I understand how important, Ocarina of Time was, but just less than a year, right?
Yeah.
Less than a year later, this obviously superior and more interesting game. Everything about it was improved. And we did play the 3DS version, but back in the day, I played I say back in the day, that collector's edition came out on GameCube. The Zelda collector's edition, which had the first 2 Zelda games, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. And then like 3 demos for Wind Waker. But anyway, I played it on there. I played the first 2 dungeons, I think. And yeah, it is. I've played Ocarina of Time 2.5 times. I played it once on 64. That was after my play on the GameCube, on that collector's edition. So then I got a 64. I played that and then gave it to a girl I liked. I gave her the gold 64. And it's so
Men
dumb.
are so dumb sometimes.
So dumb. Anyway, and then I played it again on the 3DS and realized this is not a good game.
Yeah, I for me, like, there are some things when you look back, they just hold up. Sometimes first isn't best. That's just a fact. Like, Lord of the Rings is the best. Sure, it was the first in the modern style of fantasy, but it's also still the best because a lot of the things that people copy aren't what made Lord of the Rings special. Like, Lord of the Rings is still just the best. That's not the case with Ocarina of Time. It was the first in a lot of ways. Things have done way better. Way better.
Even just 9 months later.
Literally the next year they did something better. So, anyway, it's not about Majora's Mask. What is yours, my friend?
Classic cleanup for me is a game I do not like at all and will never play again. That is Beyond Good and Evil. Now, we did not do enough research. I have no idea. Well, yeah, I mean, it sort of has that vibe. We talked about Beyond Good and Evil, why we thought it was a 3D platformer, and how some things like Kena sort of gives off those vibes. It is not a 3D platformer. And I don't know why people are calling Ratchet and Clank a 3D platformer, especially the current iteration. That's not a 3D platformer. You barely do any platforming, and even the platforming you do is not good
It's an
platforming.
action adventure shooter. That's what I'd call Ratchet.
Yeah, it's more like Uncharted than it is a 3D platformer. So in our conversation, which we'll talk about some of our favorite 3D platformers, it's not in that conversation because it's not a 3D platformer in my opinion. But we played Beyond Good and Evil in that series, and I'm so happy to have finally be able to, write that one off. It is one of the shames on my list, but not so I can, talk down at people that do like it. This is why you're dumb. I have no intention of doing that because I see why everyone loves it. All of it's there. It's so apparent. I just don't think the game itself is very good.
First time you can take off and
or just the first time you leave. It's like 20 minutes into the game, you start riding your stupid little ship around the water. It's great.
Oh yeah,
it's a lot of fun. I see it all.
Don't like it.
It's very original too. The game itself is not very good. I don't see myself ever going back to play it, but it's the thing I was happiest to write off this year. It would have been very likely Silent Hill 2 if I finished it. And I still consider Majora's Mask. I played enough of that to know. But Beyond Good and Evil, I just think it was a more interesting choice for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm happy to have finally finished it.
So the next category is a little weird.
It is.
Best disappointment.
Biggest disappointment.
Yeah, I like the everything's
what does
phrased
best
as
disappointment
best.
mean?
Everything's phrased as best. I think it's funny, but yeah. So what is the biggest disappointment for us this year? And usually on this cast we try to stay positive. It's one of our. We're optimistic about games. We like celebrating what's best about a game while being honest about where it falls short. This is not us, crapping on these games. This is games we were excited for that we felt fell short. We want more from them. We felt that they didn't deliver on what they could have. So we'll start with you, I guess.
What's a good segue? You take it away.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so for me, my honorable mention in this category is Beyond Good and Evil. Tyler just mentioned it. We didn't enjoy this game. For me, I had high hopes. I love cult classic games. I was just watching Ragnarok's video on Alice.
Return to Madness?
Yeah, not Return to Madness, but American McGee's Alice. Talk about a cult classic. I remember watching my older cousin play that, and my mom came in and was like, "What are you doing?" Pulled me out of there. It's a violent game. That's a crazy game. But absolutely incredible game. And, Ragnarok was talking about this game should be more than a cult classic. Because it genuinely did influence games after it. It should be held up as an influential title, and it's not.
Interesting.
And he makes a very good case for it, as he always does, because he's amazing. All that to say, Beyond Good and Evil does not do that. It did not hold up, and I had very high expectations. And you know me, I'm not picky. I'm not someone who needs a game to check all these boxes. I can play games that sometimes are pretty bad and think they're absolutely fantastic. Beyond Good and Evil, though, I think just falls too consistently short in every area.
Unfortunately.
It doesn't live up in anything, I'd argue. There's no aspect of it that really sells.
Of the gameplay, because I think the theme, I would agree with that statement in terms of the gameplay and the structure, the foundation of the game. But the theme, the characters, I love all of that. And that's what I see.
I guess that's fair. The world
I know
is
that's why
very
people
strong.
love it.
The world's very strong. But even then, I kind of wanted more from it a little bit. And all that to say, I don't want to, spend too much time on it, but I wanted so much more out of that. And maybe that's my fault, but that's my honorable mention.
Okay. Mine, and that's a good pick. Mine is very personal. That's Control. We played Control very early this year. I am a huge fan of David Lynch. A bit of a side note, he is in his 80s. It's going to be a very sad day when, his time comes. Betty White died a couple days ago. Did you know that?
Yeah. The internet mourned
Yes.
universally. They thought it would never happen.
Yeah, it's going to be a sad day when that guy finally,
passes
when it's
on.
his time.
Mulholland Drive is, I'd argue, the most... you could make an argument for, I won't say but in the top 5 most influential movies of the 2000s. Sorry, not influential, innovative. It is doing so many new and interesting things with storytelling and filmmaking and characters. there's nothing like it. It feels as if it's a product of a different film industry for 70 years. It's very unique. And I think that alone deserves respect. If that's all he ever made, he would deserve his place.
I was watching a video a couple days ago, just David Lynch being a madman for 10 minutes, I think.
Oh, you sent me that. So good.
Yeah. And it's just a bunch of things sort of taken out of context. Well, not really. It's just him saying what is true.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the context was, but he's obviously mad at something, and he looks at the guy filming, and he's like, it's some behind the scenes stuff that's being filmed. He's like, what a weight Einstein must have carried. Effing morons everywhere. And walked away.
So good.
Yeah, very good.
It's weird. What a weight Einstein must have carried. Like his delivery
Yeah.
is so
Yeah.
Lynchian.
Correct. So Control. It's wearing its inspiration on its sleeve. It is obviously doing so much of that weird Twin Peaks, Blue Velvet
extraordinary
sort of stuff.
buried in the ordinary.
Yeah, like a old, vintage 60s refrigerator that fully contains the universe, the realm of an old one. Of one of the old gods, the Lovecraftian gods, which you get
That's my
sucked
second favorite moment in the game, actually.
and fight.
Yeah.
It's incredible. However, the gameplay
And people
is
love this game.
Yes.
So, and this is another one for us where we both responded negatively to this game. Where we're like, I don't get it. I don't get what people are seeing. Have they never seen Twin Peaks?
Which we're going to talk about next, which is something that we just don't really see. How even almost every one of the people we follow
celebrate
the next game we're going to talk about. But the gameplay is just tired, derivative. It's all been done before. I've played it a million times before. It's barely doing anything interesting. The flying is one of the more interesting things. They don't give that to you till way later.
It very much
yeah,
either.
We talk about the structure.
You don't get to
progression.
maximize the use of the flying, except in that one section, the ashtray maze.
Ashtray maze. We will talk about that again.
Yeah.
The whole experience I thought was very lackluster
because you can see what it could have been.
Yeah, the character was pretty boring. The main character. And, I don't want to hear it. I don't say that because she's, a female character. She's just a boring, flat character.
Yeah.
A lot of my favorite characters are...
The main character, the medium, is the same way.
Yeah, she's pretty flat,
yeah.
Unfortunately. And that's the case here. And it could have been so much more. I hyped it up way too much. No, I don't think I did hype it up too much for myself because it's so highly praised. Didn't it win Game of the Year that year?
No, it didn't.
Came out with Sekiro,
but
right?
Was it 2019? Because if it did, Sekiro stomped that.
Yeah, but I
as it should have.
I don't know if it would
incredible.
stomp it, because Game of the Awards took it, but the Game Awards.
It Ben Hanson's Game of the Year or something?
Yeah, and a few other people. It was that or Sekiro. Those were the options, and so I don't think it was me that hyped it up too much. It's just other people not seeing through it. It's the same. You've done it all before. And in some cases, you've done it in better games, and then it didn't tie all of those things together, which is fine. The disparate aspects of that kind of storytelling is intentional, so that's fine. That's not totally I'll recant that statement. The disjointedness is welcome. But it could have been much more. It's got all those amazing... One of my favorite moments in there is an office that's locked. Later in the game, you get this key to go in the office. There's just a dumb chest in there. It doesn't matter. But it's covered in sticky notes. From the floor, the ceiling, the walls, everything is covered in sticky notes. And you find a note there on a guy's desk. He's so, he's not scared or anything. He's like... You can see him rolling his eyes while he's writing this note. My sticky note pad became sentient and multiplied itself. I'm going home. You can reach me on my cell phone if you need to get a hold of me. It's like, that's it.
It's so good.
It's perfect. And the old house, that's such a good idea. There's so many incredible ideas there, just wrapped in what I consider to be a very droll package.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You know what we're both going to agree on, too, is our number one pick, which was collectively our number one pick.
Yes.
Which is Deathloop. Please put your firearms away.
Yeah.
We get it. So for me, this is not a game that I think is bad necessarily. This is a game that I can think of people who I'd recommend it to.
Same thing with Control.
Yeah.
I'd recommend Control to a lot of people.
Yeah, this is a game I'd still recommend to people, especially those maybe I kind of, in my grand master of puppets way want to break out of the Call of Duty mold. Like I want them to play games that I would consider more interesting, right? So this game comes on the heels of Dishonored, on the heels of Prey, a game we both respect very highly.
Mm-hmm.
Games that are carrying on the immersive sim legacy, that are interesting, making bold decisions, and just honestly are a blast to play, that I think about constantly. We had an episode scheduled for Deathloop and just dumped it because we couldn't think of good things to say about it. It is very...
We both started playing it.
It feels great to control. The characters are very evocative. They're very, energetic. The voice acting is...
And we were so excited to play it,
The voice acting is top-notch. I mean, the voice acting is probably the best this year.
It's definitely up there.
It's
if
so
not the best,
good.
it's up there.
It's so good. And the gunplay is very clean. Some of the better gunplay this year, I'd argue. None of that can come together into any sort of semblance of an interesting package. There are some interesting combat decisions you can make there. There's some of the legacy elements of what you saw in stuff like Prey or Dishonored, but nowhere near to that level. I felt like every time I could just walk in and shoot everybody. So why don't I just walk in and shoot everybody?
Yeah, and there's one gun that you get immediately. I forget what it is. It's some sort of rifle that one-shots everything in the game. Because it's all the same enemy. There's no variation.
Yeah, and there are drops, and there are some powers and stuff you can do. And the level design's very good, I'd say. The level design is very good. You can, if you choose, make use of it in interesting ways with the turrets and those kinds of things. Funny little jokes hidden everywhere. A great loop system. All these things, all the pieces are there, but all I have to do is walk through and shoot everyone in the level. Done. They have the interesting idea of spawning in someone else as the other character to come in and kill you, and you get to fight them, and if you beat them, you get a special ability. There's a little system where you can keep things between loops, and times of day within the loop where you have to deploy at certain times to make certain things happen. Again, all the ideas are there. I was so bored playing that game though. Like when I look at all the pieces, I go, this game should be great, and it's not. I'm very, very bored the whole time, and I can just walk through and shoot everything. So why don't I? In Prey, you cannot walk through and shoot everything. In Dishonored, you can't just walk up and kill everyone easily.
You definitely can't in Prey.
Yeah, at Prey, I'd argue even more. I think Prey
absolutely
is
more.
one of the most well-designed games that I've played in a very long time. Like, in terms of just objectively good design on a granular level, that game checks every box. That is brilliant. If even one thing was off, that whole game would fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so clean. And Deathloop has a lot of similar design elements, but all you need to do is grab a gun and shoot everyone. And Arcane is probably one of my favorite, I'd say top 5 AAA developers right now, if not number 1.
And this game's so successful.
And this game is
so well.
So they're just gonna make more games like it.
I hope not. I hope not.
I want Deus Ex style games. I want those. That's what I want.
And the structure of this game is bizarre. People have talked positively about the structure, and I get it. Those are people that play different games than you and I. But the way you exit a level, exit a loop, and then do a Call of Duty loadout, give yourself perks, equip things to the guns. What is this?
It would be better if it was you're fundamentally changing how you're deploying. And I bet once you get more guns and more things, maybe you can make use of it in that way.
There are some cool I mean,
The
I didn't play
nail
very
gun's great.
much. I think I played through the first 2 or 3 hours.
I played a good
Or
6
sections,
hours.
rather. Yeah, I probably played 4 hours. 2 or 3 sections, I mean. But there's these 2 pistols that you get that you can attach to make a
Oh,
rifle.
that's so cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it does a burst shot.
Yeah, and
both of
the guns are
things
fun. They're
yeah.
very fun. And again, the gunplay is fantastic, which is why it's a problem because I can just walk through and shoot everyone. Like there's,
Yeah.
I can just kill everybody. But it'd be more interesting if you could change your loadout. Like, okay, I know my next objective is to take out this target or gain information from this place. I'm going to change my loadout to where my character is more of this style of play or a very highly mobile. But at the beginning, and I'd argue for a while, you don't have the options necessary to really do that. And why would you bother when you can just walk in and shoot everyone? At that point, why would you bother if you can just blow everyone away? So I think, again, it's a little unfair because I wanted an immersive sim and I didn't get one, but that's the reason it's most disappointment and not the worst game. You know what I mean? It's most disappointing because the level design is there. All the
and the
pieces are
gunplay,
there.
as you said, like it's a fun game. It feels good. It is a technically impressive game. However, this is just like Control, a pretty derivative game, and we know they are capable of much more. Much, much more. I don't know about Remedy, because actually I think this is Control was the first Remedy game I had played. So I don't...
Well, they've done Alan Wake, Quantum Break.
And the Max Payne series.
They did the first 2 Max Paynes. That's right.
I think they did all the Max Paynes.
No. 3 was... I know for a fact 3 was Rockstar.
Interesting.
Yeah, isn't that
Not
weird?
published by Rockstar?
No, Rockstar developed Max Payne 3.
Interesting.
Isn't that weird? Like, I learned that I was watching a video about it just like 2 months ago.
I wonder if that's enhanced for Xbox One X. I'm going to pick it up on 360 if so. I've been looking at that list a while.
I want to play Max Payne 3 for quite a while.
I've been scooping up some 360 games. I don't even have an Xbox One yet, but
it's going to happen.
I've been like Fear.
Especially if Kojima's next game is an Xbox exclusive.
Yeah.
Your boy's going to play that on Xbox Series X.
Series X. Well, you got a PC. You got a nice competent PC.
Sure, I can play it for a while I wait. But I'm going to still buy the stupid dumb giant special edition so I can suckle at Kojima's toes.
Ew.
Anyway, while we're talking about that, best narrative, Death Stranding. No, best narrative from everything we've played this year. We got a top 3. This is kind of an official selection. It's not a personal list. So I'll start with the first one. Our number 3 pick for the best narrative this year is Persona 5.
Absolutely.
Pretty easy to put that there.
Yeah, our Persona 5 episode was one of our longest standalone episodes. And
so much to talk about.
I don't just mean standalone episodes. I mean one of our non-special, Game of the Year episodes, or last week, nearly 4 hours. Our apologies. But you've got plenty to listen to in terms of the shortcuts. But I think that was 3.5 hours just for Persona 5.
There's so much to unpack. I kept a diary.
Yeah.
Like, I kept a diary.
Just like the character, every day. I started doing that and I was like, no.
I don't got time for this crap. I like writing. That's what I like to do in my free time, so it's a little easier. But yeah, the Persona 5, and Tyler mentioned this earlier, it's why it's a number 3 pick. The plot is nothing special. The actual what happens from the overarching plot is not particularly interesting.
Yeah, it was our number 2, and then I argued to move it back.
I think validly, but then what keeps it on the list at all is the individual moments, the writing in those moments, the dialogue, and then each individual palace and the events going on there, how you're unearthing this character's psychology. All that stuff is so well written and just a joy I want to see what happens next. I couldn't stop wanting to see what happened next. So, very valid point. But again, I think it's a very strong and easy pick for number 3 for us.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely had to be on the list.
Yes.
But number 2 was...
A little more controversial.
Ooh. I didn't even consider this for greatest disappointments. It might take Control, actually. It might take Control.
This is definitely
for
on
me.
Tyler's list. Definitely.
For biggest disappointments. Absolutely.
But
and that's Oddworld Soulstorm. Because Oddworld Abe's Odyssey might be It's certainly in my top 15. I'm pretty sure top 15. Could be top 10.
And
I think
I
Abe's
want to play
Odyssey-
Rain World. I think Rain World is carrying a lot of those ideas over.
That's even more exciting for me.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll just want to play it again and we'll do an episode on it.
Oh, that's I have been very eager to play this game again. Rain World is a very, if you look at the subreddit, great resource by the way. They have some non-spoiler like, hey, here's some things if you're feeling discouraged, you should check out. Very helpful. But their one of their main takeaways is, hey, this is a game that the more you play it, the more rewarding. Like it's built to be replayed in many ways, to test yourself more. It's very good. Very good. Anyway,
That's so exciting. Well, Oddworld Soulstorm, the true sequel to Odyssey. Now, Exodus was the sequel for a while, but that was a publisher mandated sequel. He wasn't Lorne Lanning, that is, was not able to achieve everything he wanted to with the sequel. There's a lot of reused assets. There's some new mechanics, but it's very much just more Odyssey. And I think Odyssey is an absolute treasure. I would recommend, if you can play it on the Vita or PSP, the original PSP, or actually even PS3. Play the original
version.
not New and Tasty. New and Tasty falls short in a lot of ways. One moment.
No, you're good. Go ahead and finish.
Well, there you go. Oh, yeah. You're going to introduce it. Falls short in a lot of ways, in particularly the heart and the character. And I don't mean the character of Abe. I just mean the what
soul.
makes it so unique. It's I think you said, or maybe somebody else said, it's sort of sterile. That everything is too round. It's a
Matthew Matosis has a great breakdown. If you really want to watch one, check him out on YouTube. I would argue he has the best breakdown on why New and Tasty fails. And I only played the first 45 minutes of New and Tasty.
Mm-hmm. And I actually a couple weeks ago played. I went through. Oh, when we did the Soulstorm episode, I started capturing footage on PC, but it's not good. It's not good on PC. If you have a PS3, even playing on a modern screen, just the emulation, the PS1 emulation is so much better. So maybe look at an emulator or something. The PC version you can get for $4. I don't recommend it.
Heck, play it on original PSX if you got it.
Yeah, if there's a way for you to play the original.
Do you own a copy of the
it.
original?
I do, yeah.
And Exodus, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Are they pretty pricey right now?
No, not at all. Not at all, dude. You can pick them up right now for less than $40.
I know
Both
PSX
of them.
games are going up.
I think you can get the original for like $20.
That's nice.
You should pick them up, dude.
The only PSX game I own is actually Final Fantasy VIII, which is a weird thing.
Why? Where'd you even get it?
I found a great it was at some local, I think it was Game Over, like the one in Round Rock, and it was I don't know, $4.
Yeah.
Because it had a weird problem with the case or something. I was like, whatever, sure, I'll take that. I was picking up other things. I was like,
I have all of the Final Fantasy games. No, I don't have Tactics on PS1, but for a while I was flipping PS2s. I would just go around the Austin area. Well, flipping consoles in general. I was going to Goodwill auctions and cheating. I was cheating. I would put your and Nick's name as the first and third bid, but myself or first and second bid, and myself as the third bid. So they have to call me. It might take a little longer, but they call you, don't get a response. Call Nick, don't get a response. They call me. And then I'll get it for the price I wanted it. Terrible, dishonest. I shouldn't have done that. However, I found a PS2. I think I got it for $25. A nearly brand new PS2, still in the box. It still had, now it had been opened and played, but it was a
console boxes are a big deal to some people.
Yeah,
Big
that's the
deal.
one I've got one for an actually brand new DS Lite as well. So I've got this PS2 and the DS Lite, but the PS2 was a re-release of the Slim, which has a gloss finish on half of it, whereas it's just matte typically it's just matte across the board, but the matte black and gloss black, it still had the plastic on there. I think I still have the plastic on that gloss part, but nearly brand new PS2 still in the box. And PlayStation, what is it? Final Fantasy Chronicles, which comes with Final Fantasy 4 and Chrono Trigger on the same disc. I've got Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9. And there's one other thing that comes with Final Fantasy 1 and 2. Whatever that, Anthology. Final Fantasy Anthology.
Origins?
Origins, maybe? Yeah, that sounds right. But on a disc holder. Like on one of those.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so no cases for any of them. But that and the PS2, literally $25.
That's insanity.
It's awesome.
Before you start talking about why Soulstorm is on the narrative list.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We've been going on a rant.
I'm going to pour some Michter's. Michter's is my favorite bourbon distiller. I love them. They're amazing. Their standard Michter's bourbon is my favorite daily drinker. It's about $40. Fantastic daily drinker. Their 10-year is my number one favorite bourbon of all time.
Oh.
This is not that. This is their American whiskey. They're not allowed to call it bourbon because of the barrels they use to age this guy. They actually age it in bourbon barrels. You're allowed to finish bourbon in whatever you want, but in order to call it bourbon, it has to be aged in new American oak. So this is aged in bourbon barrels, used bourbon barrels, so it tastes different. It's not my favorite, actually. It's one that I think I've shared with you, but it's not my favorite, but some people really like it. It is unique. It doesn't taste like most bourbons, even though it's pretty much everything else about it is a bourbon. So, yeah, enjoy. Cheers.
I will enjoy, unlike Oddworld Soulstorm.
I'm so sorry. Again, this is very good. It has some of the more bready characteristics of an Irish whiskey in a lot of ways, but
That's so. All three of these have been so different.
yeah, that's
I don't know what to say about it.
No, this is
Like
very
you,
odd.
I don't drink whiskey as often as you do, so I can't talk about it a lot.
I mean, it's gonna have some of the cherry and stuff on
That's
bourbon.
it. Cherry.
Yeah,
Cherry is
it's gonna have cherry on the bourbon, but again, it ends in this almost like sourdough taste. It's very weird. This is not
The cherry's so strong, though. That's exactly it.
Yeah, the cherries, it's so good. It's very good. It's not my thing necessarily. I like the more mapley characteristics of their flagship bourbon. But this is delightful. It's a little bit harder to find. Not hard to find, but a little harder to find than their normal stuff. Their rye and so on and so forth.
Well, I thought you said this was your favorite everyday drinker.
No, their bourbon.
Oh, okay.
This is their American whiskey.
I see.
So, very good. But talk about Soulstorm.
It is very good. Yeah, so Soulstorm, we also recommend you check out that episode. You can either find just the Soulstorm part or the full episode with Metroid Dread, or the little bonus we posted with our discussion from our sort of testing of the whole podcast format. I got to share Odyssey with Zach. So definitely go check those out. We talk a lot about it.
Of Odyssey now that it's sat with me.
Yeah, he has talked about it a few times this year. Actually, it keeps coming up.
Yeah, and when I first played it, it was a little frustrating. I don't play a lot of those old PSX games anymore. I remember even playing Metal Gear Solid 1 the first time. I was pretty frustrated. It's just some of the older game design techniques. And, I play difficult games, but there's a different kind of frustration with older difficulties, I'd argue. It's a different design of difficulty. And I was just frustrated. Knowing that, extrapolating that frustration from the experience and having played parts of it over again now, I recognize it's an absolutely brilliant video game.
Yeah. I would also recommend, even more than watching our episode on Soulstorm or Odyssey, going to watch the Ars Technica War Stories video on Oddworld, Odyssey, and Exodus. Abe's Odyssey and Abe's Exodus with Lorne Lanning. He just goes into detail about
everybody's uncle.
Yeah, he goes into detail about everything that it took to make those games, why he made those games, and such a powerful statement. One of the main characteristics he put into those games was, or themes rather, is hope, and he says that he firmly believes one of the greatest endangered natural resources the human race has is hope. And I love that sentiment. You don't hear anybody talk about it like that. Talk about hope that way, sort of humanize it not humanize it, but it's sort of a very heady and almost ethereal concept. But when you bring it down like that to something tangible, it's really, really
Oh
good.
man, I need you to play Rain World even more now.
What the heck?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, Soulstorm. Moving on for real this time. It carries all of that through. The narrative is one of the strongest this year, I think. The visual design is impeccable. The gameplay is not good at all. It has a foundation there for interesting things. I think it is a decent direction to move in for the series. It's not very much like the first or Exodus, much at all. It's doing some new things, and that's fine. It's a sequel. It's moving the franchise in a new direction. Totally fine with that. The technical prowess is not there. It falls short with, I believe, I'd really have to think about it a little more, but I think every single mechanic it falls short in some very important mechanics. If it completely trips and falls down a stairwell, 14-story stairwell, and hits its head on a little rock and bleeds out and dies. I think that's how bad it is. It's
Where's the butt? Let me hear it.
No, that's why it's the disappointment, because everything else.
No, but we're talking about narratives.
Oh, we are on narrative.
Yeah, you retroactively made this your disappointment. So I will really...
That's right. I did.
If you listen to our episode, the one thing Tyler and I come back to is the story and the heart of Oddworld it beats so strong here. And the reason we completed levels was to get to that next beautifully animated cutscene, to see what's gonna happen next. I care about Abe. I care about the Mudokons.
Yeah.
I care the beehive guy. Like,
oh my goodness, when Abe is crying there when he gets the knowledge.
curls up.
Big spoilers here. Definitely, all of that's out of context. But right now we're gonna put it in context. So spoilers. Just skip ahead a couple minutes.
Just skip ahead a minute.
He obtains all of the knowledge of the history of the Mudokons, and he's crying there in the fetal position, and the shaman comes and picks him up, and Abe asks, why did they do that? And you don't know if he means the oppressors, be it the Gluckins or any previous oppressors, or if he means the Mudokons. Like, because you've not seen this side of the Mudokons before. This very... Is benevolent the right word? The shaman? Like, she seems so removed, almost like an antagonist.
It's a Gandalf-esque character, like book Gandalf, like where it's a good person, but like you can't really tell their motivations
are so removed from your comprehension.
Yeah, and it's really well presented. It's so good. It's so good, and that's the reason I even finished the game, and I want him to make another game. Even if it's just as bad, I want him to, because I want to know what happens next.
Yes.
Seriously, it's an incredible narrative. Very well done. And it's just everything else that falls short.
Everything else that makes
Tell
it
us
a game.
the number one pick, Tyler.
No, I want you to take it away, Zach. This one's for you.
Okay, I'll take it.
You can talk about it in ways that I am incapable of.
Disco Elysium is good. Let's move on.
It's a good game. Yeah.
Disco Elysium is a once-in-a-lifetime narrative. Seriously. If not once in a lifetime, once in a decade. The writer is so aware of the common human condition, but doesn't even contextualize it in all of our common problems. Sure, our common issues and thoughts and philosophies and politics are all there, but they're all rooted in something so much deeper and universal. This game will matter to people 100 years from now if they're still able to play it, right? It's the kind of thing that makes Moby Dick. Nobody knows about whaling anymore. Nobody knows about whaling. Like, how does whaling work? That's terrible. Don't whale. Like, it's, but because he's writing about something so much more fundamental than just whaling, about the human condition, about the human heart, about agony and despair and hopelessness and, all these things, the vast expanse, because he's writing about those things, it will last so much longer. And that's what's happening here. It's a political drama happening in Disco Elysium. That's the plot, is a political drama about revolution and communism and unionization and capitalism, and all these things are there, but at the heart is just, it's so human. And every line is written with so much talent and craft. Like, every word that is written is so richly detailed. It's poetic. Like, and I don't mean that in the generic, like, oh, it's poetic. I mean like a poem. It is so beautiful and raw, and he taps into one of my favorite themes, which is why wake up? Why be conscious? You know, like, what's the point? And you get to choose. And no matter what you choose, that pathway is well written. So it is so obvious it hurts. And even the little side quests and characters, everybody is memorable. Mm-hmm. Everything that happens is memorable. I will never forget the church. Ever.
It's incredible. Or the dice maker.
The dice maker.
But just this morning, I was finishing the game, and I finally had a deep conversation with the wash lady. Just the old blind lady that doesn't even tell... You have to press her for her name because she doesn't even care that she has a name anymore. And it started... She said some things about being old that made me think of our current generation. Like, what sort of old people are we going to be? And I don't mean that in like a funny way. You know, we're going to be such a terrible generation. I've seen, I forget what commercial, but there were these folks in their 70s, but they were still doing like Instagram parties. I don't mean that stuff. I mean introspectively, what sort of elders are our generation going to be? Because just these few sentences are able to pull that out of you. It's really something special. I've never played anything like it, and I probably never will.
No, I don't think there's going to be anything like it. My PS5 copy is shipping in the mail.
Yep.
Very excited.
Very excited. Surprisingly, it plays incredibly with a controller.
Yeah, Tyler was saying that, so I'm glad to hear that because I'm going to play that game again. Maybe 10 times because that's incredible.
I might play it again this year.
It's so good.
If I have some downtime.
So speaking of Disco Elysium, that had a lot of good characters, didn't it?
It did have a lot of good characters.
We transition now to the best characters. This is, again, we talked about how some of these segments aren't going to recur from year to year, but we played a lot of narratively focused games. So we talked about best narrative, but we obviously with good narratives often come great characters.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you introduced me to Supergiant, so why don't you kick this off?
Okay. So I think it was the first game we played this year.
Yeah, for the cast, it was the first game, yeah.
Yeah. So I shared Transistor with him last year. Then later on, we played Hades. That was our game of the year. We had both already played Bastion, and so we had to finish it. We had to play Pyre. And so we did.
The last Supergiant game we hadn't played.
And
with my favorite Supergiant track.
Really?
My favorite track, which is the tree guy, the like
pretentious the Russian like aristocrat. So I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, that song.
Yeah. It's incredible.
It plays through my head all the time.
I think it's among his best. Still, Transistor.
You have better taste than I do, and you've listened to all of them through.
No, Rage of the Myrmidon, I think, is just his best work.
That's fair.
That's him doing everything that he's wanted to do. Rage of the Myrmidon from Hades, not my favorite, but I think it's his best.
Okay, but yeah, go
anyway,
ahead.
Pyre. We played Pyre the first that was our first game last year. It is a very narratively focused game.
Almost a visual novel.
A lot of it. It's sort of a sports game and a visual novel. The game itself is fine. I wouldn't want to play it again. I would really just want to play the visual novel part again. But there are how many characters? Like 12 or so. Totally unique characters. Most of them are from different races, and they're all outcasts. You've been cast down from some aristocratic society into some sort of lower plane in which you have to compete in, they call it the rites, these rituals. It's a tournament-style sports where you work your way up this bracket, and finally every season the last two teams compete, and the winner gets to nominate one person to go home. It's such a good loop. You do that 4 or 5 times.
I think it was Game Maker's Toolkit talked about how it turns loops on its head even, because your goal is to get rid of the person you like. Often it's to get rid of a person
That's
that you
the
like,
narrative goal,
right? But you want to keep your best players, but often the people you've been investing in are the ones that you are gonna play at the final right, and you are probably gonna get rid of.
Yeah. So
and if
you've
you
got
don't,
two,
you're depriving them of going home.
yeah, you've got two completely competing interests. You have the gameplay interest of building up characters to, increasing their stats, getting new skills, practicing with their unique sort of shake up of the mechanics. But then in doing that, you learn more about the character, you become closer to them, you build relationships, and those are the characters you like. And so those two things are building. One path has you just making the best character you can. One path has you making the best friend you can make. And then when those things meet at the end of these tournament, you have to choose to let somebody go. And as you mentioned, often it's the person that you like the most, because that's the whole point. You want to see them go home.
And light spoilers here, just 1, 2, 3. Some light spoilers here that, not everybody's going to be able to go home.
No.
And it drops that on you a little late. So if you've been saving your favorites for last, a lot of times you're going to be like, oh no, I have to make a hard decision now, which is what they want. God bless this. Again, you turned me on. They're the best game developer working right now. I'm convinced.
They are one of them, yes.
If
not the best, one of...
For me, they're my favorite.
Certainly top 5, if not the best. They're my favorite. Yes, they are my favorite. So
it's so innovative. God bless you. I would kiss you.
Yeah, it flips that on its head and warns you that you're only going to be able to do this 2 more times. You've done it like 3. What do you do? 5 times total? Something like that. You think you're going to be able to just keep doing this until there's no one else to go home, or it's the last 3 of you because you have to play with 3. And then after your 3rd one, it drops on you. You're going to be able to do this 1 or 2 more times. And the choices get very real. And from the first one, you can let yourself go home, right? You can end the game after the first one?
I don't think you can go home. I don't think so.
Interesting.
I don't recall, at least.
Yeah, it's been a whole year since we've played.
That's weird.
I think you can let yourself go home. Isn't that
maybe? I don't know.
Part of the point? Yeah, I don't recall. No, because you're not the actual player. Only the 3 players can go home. You're the one dictating. You're the coach.
Yeah.
Which
that sounds right.
Yeah, that sounds right. So it's just, I've never played a game that has. I play a lot of games and I seek out a lot of games that marry its gameplay and its narrative, but I've never played a game that marries their narrative for the sole purpose of utterly divorcing the two by the time you reach the conclusion. And it's never been done. I don't think it's ever been done. It's very unique. I absolutely love it. And it's not one of the best narratives this year. Though, honestly, maybe we should have put it there.
Maybe we should have put
maybe
that
we
there.
should have put it there.
Think about it.
It's an honorable mention, absolutely. I might put that over Oddworld.
Yeah.
But, yeah, now that we're reliving that, go ahead and talk about our favorite character. Collectively, our favorite character.
Jody. So Jody is our favorite character. So demons in this world are people who've been trapped here so long in this kind of purgatory.
Humans specifically. There's a bunch of races.
Specifically humans who've been trapped here for so long, for some reason start to grow horns, grow bulk, maybe teeth, like kind of, lower jaw, kind of animalistic teeth.
Oh, like the, typical orc sort of
orcish teeth. That's a good way of describing it. Yeah. And Jody used to be a warrior before she was cast down to this place and has been here a very long time. So she's a demon race, which, have larger auras and a couple other things. But her kind of stoicism and
loyalty. That's a big one.
And her her desire to this kind of self-sacrificial nature all combine into this, and it's that subtle knowledge that she's been here so much longer than everyone else. That you just love her so much, and she's one of the starting characters too, so you get a lot of time. She's the last one I sent home.
Oh, really?
Because I wanted to develop my relationship with her the most.
I thought she was the first one you sent home.
No, I sent the dude home first. Of the three, the human guy. He's the guy I sent home first.
Yeah. She was also the last one I sent home.
She's such a great character, so well written. And a character you don't see very often, this warrior, self-sacrificial warrior is pretty common, but with this stoicism and awkwardness.
Awkward for sure.
Awkwardness, but, and sternness, the hard exterior with the soft interior, but in a very nuanced way. It's not the boring, traditional, flat character. Again, that's why she's here. I think she's one of the most well-written characters I've ever seen. She's absolutely delightful.
And I love her contrast
her so much.
Yeah, she's fantastic. I love the contrast with the other starting. There's 3 starting characters, but only 2 of them, Jody and the human. I've already forgotten his name. The younger guy. Their relationship is makes her character a little more interesting because he's a very jovial, upbeat guy.
He's human, but he's not a demon. He hasn't been here.
Yeah, he's been there only a couple of years, I think. Very recent. But he... it's hard to describe, so let me see if I can do it. As a warrior, I'm imagining like an actual knight in armor. And he's a character that is very buddy-buddy with her, but only sees the armor. Doesn't even attempt to see underneath it. And the player character is the first person to sort of lift up the visor on the helmet, look at her eyes, and she's very comfortable with herself, but way too taken aback that you are attempting to see Jody rather than the warrior, and he doesn't really see that either.
It's a really good way of putting it. Yeah.
So I really like that whole dynamic.
I
don't think I sent him home. I don't think I sent the human home.
I love Ruski. I think I sent the first 3 all home. But
no, I'm pretty sure he stayed. The dog maybe was the first one I sent home.
He's hilarious. I love the worm.
The worm's very funny.
He's very good. So many great characters from this game. Seriously, play this game if you haven't played it.
Yeah, Jody was the last one, though, for different reasons than you. Of course, I was interested in building the relationship with her, but I often try to roleplay. If it's not a character for me to put myself into, I try to do what the characters would do. And here... Jody likely would have said no, which she can't say no to you. But I have a feeling if she was the first one you pick in the game, she would have made some sort of fuss about it. And I feel like she would have done that throughout because of that self-sacrificial character trait. But at making it the very end, she knows this is a reward she's earned, and she's so ready to accept it and so grateful.
And she goes back and does so many good things on the surface.
Yeah, I like her a lot.
I
sent the little girl home just before Jody.
That's right.
I sent the girl home. I don't know her name.
And she
doesn't have a name.
Faye, yeah, I called her Faye, I think.
Yeah, something. She has. There's a bunch of names that
What should I be called?
Yeah,
she's very interesting.
I like her a lot.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, play Pyre.
It's a good game.
It's a really good game,
guys.
It's
a really good game.
Next for us, a character that is going to come as a surprise. Because when you play Persona 5...
No, it's not.
I feel like it is for a lot of people. I guess come as a surprise for anyone who, if we're going to say...
The uninitiated.
Who's your favorite character of Persona 5? A lot of people are going to say Futaba. A lot of people are going to say Sojiro correctly.
Fair enough.
Sojiro's fantastic. We are going to pick the true best character, who is Yusuke.
The Sigma male.
The Sigma male. So far removed. So for me, Yusuke's a character, I was like, this is going to be a generic one-note character. I'm very uninterested in this guy. Like, whatever, he's the, burdened artist. Like, I don't care. But he moves quirkiness past a character trait and turns it into a human soul. Like, he is so odd and brings so much life to every conversation. I just love how removed he is from reality. My favorite moment, potentially in the whole game, is when he shows up with 2 lobsters on the beach and is aghast when anyone recommends that they eat these lobsters. Because he's like, I just bought these for their artistic beauty, for like just the soul aesthetic value of them. Like, he has no idea why anybody would want to eat them.
He brings a very particular kind of life, and I think I don't think they're doing this intentionally. I really don't, because they never play on it. They play a lot on other characters, like very obvious either ailments or, Futaba has some social and maybe some mental.
They really doubled down on Futaba a lot.
But, and this is going to come across weird. I don't even know if I should say it on the podcast, but I feel a little qualified. Several members of my family have autism. I've worked with autistic kids in various classrooms. And a lot of my friends, several of my friends, are autistic to a degree. They're on the spectrum. The life he brings to every situation is life that only, and no one really points this out. I don't think a lot of people point this out. They're like, oh, you're special. You're not like anybody else. But that's fine. It doesn't matter that you're different. No, it does matter that you're different. There's a particular kind of life that literally only an autistic person can bring.
It's like one of my very close friends. I have some family members who are a little bit higher on the autistic spectrum. I don't know how they gauge that these days. It always changes. What used to be called Asperger's, though, is a lower level of autism. And that's what my friend Chris Van Sickle has. If you're listening, I love you, Chris. He's one of my favorite people I've ever met in my whole life.
What a wildly interesting person.
And he invigorates every conversation he's in just by being there. And he'll just say something, and you genuinely feel like this is the most important thing happening right now.
Yeah, even one of our closest friends, we see him every week, and we'll just say things sort of under his breath and this happens to him every day of his life, that only one person in the room will get, and it'll be such a special moment that you don't often forget.
Yes.
But I think I'm being careful enough with the subject, but there is a very particular kind of like joy for life that only I think autistic people can see, and Yusuke embodies a lot of that.
That's a really good point. I never thought of it like that. But I think I might, if I thought about it longer, I'm pretty sure I'd agree with you. It's very, because he is so removed. And I think what he's missing is a lot of the self-absorption, right? A lot of the inability to see outside of himself in a lot of ways. I think he's better at that. But I do think you're right about that quality that he's bringing to it. It's very good.
Yeah.
It's very good. And again, just every moment, every time I could go out of my way to ask Yusuke, what do you think, Yusuke? I would do it every time.
Every time.
He's so good. So good. So number 1, who do we got?
Take it away with number 1.
Okay.
This is from Disco Elysium, your loving partner. Loving is the wrong word. Your partner, your very special friend, Kim Kutsuragi.
He's I think it's just obvious. Like, if you look anywhere on the internet, Kim is the number 1. He is your moral compass. It's the reason I'd have so much trouble playing a cruel character, because Kim would frown on it and go, oh no, Kim,
yeah,
no, I'm so sorry. Like, he shouldn't be this well developed. Like, as a side character, someone who comments on what you're doing, a lot of times these are pretty, to use a word that you stole from me that I'm gonna steal from you now, sterile. Pretty, it should be a pretty sterile character, someone who's, someone who's not going to get in the way of the character. But Kim's very much getting in the way of your decisions because you like him and you want to make him happy. Like when there's a moment later in the game where you can influence an outcome to make sure he's okay. And I was like, oh, please be okay, please be okay, Kim, please be okay. Because he's just such a rich character. He's very intelligent. He's respectful, but critical. He's the kind of person you want to be when you grow up, you know? And he has a heart of his own, too. You can see some anger come through when there's some, when you talk with racist characters. And he has his own internal life, and it's developed so slowly because he's never going to explicitly tell you this stuff.
Yeah.
But you get to see it, and you spend every moment with him, basically. Such a rich character development process to where you can't help but just fall in love with this guy. And I love him. I love him so much.
Yeah, I won't talk about that aspect of the game. Big spoiler there. You should definitely play this game. One of my favorite moments in the game, though, is with Kim, because his character is revealed to you very slowly. And oftentimes it's just with these little quips that sort of give you a peek through like a keyhole. You can barely see anything, but just a little bitty comments. And you've got to pass time often in the game if you want to move various narrative threads along. One of the things you can do to pass time is buy a board game. There's two options. You can either buy a pen and paper RPG and read through the book, or you can buy sort of I think they sell it as like a sort of Settlers of Catan kind of board game, but you can buy one of those from the bookshop and then start opening it. And it gives you a description of everything about the game. You can read the rule book, and or you read the whole back of the box, tells you about the pictures and stuff. But then you open it, and the narrator says that you tear in to the cellophane wrapping as though removing a tight bodice from a tawdry novel. I love that description. But then you start punching the chipboard, and it's narrating you punching the chipboard, and then Kim cuts into the narration. It's like, are you really going to do that without asking me to help you? Like, he's not asking for help. He's not offering help. He's saying it's rude for you not to let him share in the satisfaction of punching the chipboard of a board game.
It's incredible.
Like, this guy's a real nerd.
Yeah, and the other side of that, too, is when you discover a pretty big character moment, you have to sit and wait for the tide to recede.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And you're sitting there with Kim, and you start to whistle, and he just whistles with you. And it's just this little moment, but you can see that camaraderie is there, and it's just all those little,
Or if you fail the whistle roll, he teaches you how to whistle.
No way. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
It's very good.
That's so special.
I failed it.
Yeah.
Did you nod with him looking at the wall?
I don't remember.
So there's a wall with a bunch of bullet holes in it. Like machine gun spray.
Yeah.
And you can just... So you obviously know what's going on here, and you could chime in and then continue the conversation and figure out what's going on with the wall. But Kim's nodding at it like he's figured something out. And you can nod. You both start nodding at it. And then it always gives you the option to chime in and like continue the conversation. But you can go for like 10 text boxes of nodding your head harder and harder to the point where Kim even removes his handkerchief while nodding and wipes the sweat off. And then you get damage because you're hurting your neck while nodding so hard. And then finally, after taking damage for, I think, the second time, you're forced to stop. And Kim was like, done finally? I'm glad I stopped a moment ago, and wipes his brow again.
It's incredible.
What a silly moment.
That's just so good. Again, a testament to why it's the best narrative, too. So that's our...
He's a real professional at this.
It's so good.
Yeah. Very good. Disco Elysium is one of the best games ever crafted. A certainly once in a generation, if not lifetime experience. I cannot recommend it enough. Zach cannot recommend it enough.
Yeah, it's that good.
One of the best things from this year. but not the best.
No, we will talk about that
Very soon.
So next we're going to move into, you guys know who've been following us that we like to separate some of the times of our year into a series where this is more of a Zach thing, really. I tend to tackle things as a whole chunk. I played all the Metal Gear games back to back. I like to experience something holistically. And so I don't try to push it too much, but Tyler does enjoy it every once in a while as well, and we like to do series where we get a broader look at a couple things. So our two major series this year were 3D platformers, and of course our recurring every year series are horror games. So we'd like to kind of honor what we think was the best from each of those series. So Tyler, why don't you take it away with what you thought was the best horror game we played this year?
Well, I don't think it's the best. It is my favorite.
Oh, sorry,
though.
You're right. Honorable mention, because we both agree on the best.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's your
absolutely.
honorable mention?
And one of my greatest surprises this year was Paratopic, for a very particular reason. For a couple reasons. Yeah. So Paratopic is a very small little horror game. I do recommend you also go check out that episode. It's a sort of a small indie horror collective. And Paratopic is like 45 minutes long. It's a first-person, narrative-driven experience. You're not doing much in the terms of gaminess. But unlike Control, which I think completely fell short in terms of its gameplay, and while had a bunch of fantastic Lynchian ideas, was very surface level. It didn't go too deep into any of those things. The presentation is probably the biggest thing that made it fall short. Paratopic, however, is 100% a David Lynch video game. If he made a game, I think this would be it. And I do wonder what he would think of it if he played it.
That's great. You should keep doing that.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
This is, to its very core, a David Lynch game. It understands what David Lynch is doing, which is not just being weird. There's a lot more to, outside of the scope of this podcast, a lot more than just being weird. And Paratopic gets that. It's dirty. It feels dirty. Like kind of when you've been working with too many different materials too long and your hands start to get
filmy.
Yeah. Like that's what his movies feel like. When you're just looking at it on screen, it feels like that. This game totally gets it. And at its very core is that. It's just a very quick 45-minute little experience.
And I think another important thing is it's not explaining it to you. It's not like telling you what this thing is doing or why it's there, what's happening. It's just happening.
Yeah, for example, if the sticky note situation, the sentient multiplying sticky notes from Control would have been very much at home in a David Lynch movie. But if they were in a David Lynch movie, you would not find a note on there. No one would explain that.
It would be a character walking in to his office, seeing all this stuff, kind of giving a sigh, and then going and sitting down at his desk and working.
Yeah.
That's what would happen.
Totally nonchalant.
And then
you would
a
never
full-on
know about
emotional, anger-ridden scene would occur where he's arguing with his wife on the phone, while it's just sticky notes everywhere. That's what would happen.
And then you just see in the background another one move over and copy itself, and no explanation would happen.
Yeah.
It's not told to you, and then also oftentimes doesn't mean very much. Even I must say. A lot of it is there.
Yeah, it's not about symbolizing something. It's just this visual manifestation of a weird feeling. It's just very good.
So Paratopic gets that, absolutely. That's one of the biggest surprises from this year for me. One of the greatest horror games I think that we played. And maybe I'd entertain an argument saying it's not a horror game, but that's sort of how it's billed. That's where we played it. And it's not like Kana or
Beyond Good and Evil.
Beyond Good and Evil, which are not 3D platformers. This is certainly adjacent enough to be called a platformer. I mean, a horror game, which is why I would put it as my honorable mention for best horror game this year.
Yep. And then my honorable mention is a one that really hit home for me, and that's Faith. It's an Atari-styled horror game. Lots of good ideas. Very short game. You should play it. Don't want to say too much about it. It's definitely worth your time. It's very cheap. Just pick it up on
Like
Steam.
$1.
Yeah, it's like $1. Pick it up on Steam. Give it a try. Just really incredible storytelling chops from these developers, and it's jarring. It's scary. They got me a couple times. They do a good job in these little Atari format. I still remember many of the screens from that game. So that's my honorable mention.
Mm-hmm. Good choice. There's a bunch of stuff I remember from that game as well, especially the demon crawling out of the girl's face portal.
Oh, yeah.
What a dumb sentence I just said.
But it's
so
cool. And then
so
we
cool.
both agree on our number one pick for this. It's Silent Hill 2.
Yeah.
It deserves the status it gets. It's all of the emotions, the psychological unearthing. Again, that Alice in Wonderland video mentioned Silent Hill. And talked about how this game predated them in terms of the individual character getting psychologically unearthed with visuals. Yeah, so again, just brilliantly well done. And I care so much about James's story and the decisions he's made, and I want what's best for him in so many ways, despite his terribleness in many ways. It's good. It's so well presented. Just a brilliant video game.
I absolutely agree. But we also did another series this year.
We did.
We're going to do a couple, or rather last year. We're going to do a couple this year as well. But looking back on last year, 3D platformers was a big one for us.
We played a lot of bad ones.
We played a lot of bad ones. Oh my goodness.
Ones we really struggled to enjoy, but
yeah,
there were some gems. What do you think the first gem is,
Tyler? Mine is well, maybe not. I don't think I've talked about it very much on the cast, but certainly between the two of us, it couldn't be anything other than It Takes Two. I think It Takes Two was far and away the best platformer this year, even in a world where Bowser's Fury exists. Bowser's Fury is great for a lot of reasons, but It Takes Two is so many unique and really impeccably implemented mechanics. I can only think of one single mechanic that was pretty lackluster, and I don't even know if that's fair because I was not playing the character that got to do that mechanic. So it's so many ideas, and unlike any other game that I can think of, really, except for maybe a Mario game, it introduces something awesome that you can build a whole game around, throws it away 45 minutes later, gives you a new thing, throws it away, gives you a new thing, over and over. And yeah, it might be a little long. The tree level is like 3 hours, maybe. Maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but not by much. A little too long there. Some of the things just slightly overstay their welcome. But in terms of just the 3D platforming fun, which is what most 3D platformers go for, is the fun factor. I don't think any of them come close. But you are going to tell me why that is not always the case.
Yes, because this is definitely not one that wins because of its fun factor. And that's Prince of Persia 2008, your share with me this year, one of your big ones. And this game hit home with me. I actually like it more than Tyler currently does.
It fell a bit for me.
Yeah.
It definitely fell, but I still love it.
Yeah,
and I'm so happy you did.
They deliver, they're definitely pulling from the Team Ico feel. That's what they're going for in a lot of ways. And both from Ico and from Colossus. A lot of ideas from both of those things. And for this game, it's the emotional resonance. A very bold ending. One that I think the epilogue undermines, and maybe don't even bother playing the epilogue. I think that the ending is very bold and works very well. Even though the epilogue has, I think, it brings the platforming to a place where I think the platforming, all the best ideas are really, this is where they shine the most. It's in the epilogue. Specifically that box puzzle that we twist the two boxes around. Really just comes to fruition in a lot of ways. And this game has its issues. It's by no means even close to as clean as It Takes Two. But the narrative...
Or even other Prince of Persia games.
Yeah, but where it really shines is the emotional resonance there. And the the overall feel of playing the game, it's you're not dying. There's no failure state. You're just kind of moving through it, and the flow system just really works well. It's fun to play, and it's not passive. It's you're enjoying it and you're actively with it. So, yeah, I would say Prince of Persia 2008.
Very happy you enjoyed it. I really hope the Sands of Time remake picks back up. It's been indefinitely delayed. They seem to be so far along, other than complications with COVID. I don't really know what the deal is there. I hope it wasn't some situation where like, hey, we need help on Riders Republic. I keep forgetting about that game, Infinite. But yeah, we need help on this. Scrap everything you've done for the past couple of years. We don't care. I hope it's not a situation like that. I hope it's just some sort of COVID complications, and it will happen a little later this year, because Sand of Time is another one of my favorites, and I hope it lives up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to playing it.
Yeah,
this one is a universal pick for us.
Really yeah. It would have been on the list last year.
Yeah. So this is the best game you played with a friend. So it can be co-op, competitive, anything. Well, Tyler and I picked up, along with a couple other friends of ours, picked up Risk of Rain 2, and just ran with it. That is an addicting game. So fun. You can just, there's so many different classes, each very unique from each other.
Very different.
And there's just a flow to that game where you kind of get into this rhythm with it, and you can just keep going, and you can turn on artifacts and have fun with the artifact effects. If you haven't played Risk of Rain 2, just grab a friend and play it. Oh my gosh.
I cut my teeth on the artifacts playing with the glass artifacts, so you get 500% damage, but you only have 10% health. So pretty much everything is a one-shot kill, both for you and for the enemies. Not quite a one-shot kill for the enemies, but you're not like having to unload a ton of ammo, which I know there's no ammo, but just the giants, they're not sponges anymore. It's a very different game playing with the glass, and then there's a multiplier that makes enemies spawn like twice as fast or something, or there's double the enemies on every stage. So I ramped that up as quickly as possible on Monsoon and just beat my head against it until I was good at the game, and it was very rewarding. I think I probably put close to 50 hours in this year.
Yeah, I didn't get put quite as much, but I probably put 25. It's
Yeah, some of the things I missed out on finishing this year was because I just couldn't stop playing. Even by myself.
Yeah, it's a very fun game, and
it's
so fun to play
that DLC coming out. Oof, that DLC might come up in our following Game of the Year discussions. We'll see.
Let's do it.
I'm excited for more Risk of Rain.
Risk of Rain 2. That's
best game to play with a friend.
Yeah, easy. What's the best game to play on the go, though, Tyler? Mobile gaming experience.
I did not play, not so much like iOS mobile, but something to play basically on your Switch. I didn't play that many this year. I also played your number one pick.
Oh yeah, let me just say that real quick. It's an easy one. Burnout Paradise. I played Burnout Paradise for the first time. I played it on Switch. Took it on a trip. I didn't talk with my friends enough. I wanted to just play Burnout Paradise.
It's very, very good. I also played it this year.
So fun on mobile. Like, I would say it is a little difficult. I would say you shouldn't play it on mobile. On mobile. Shouldn't play it on Switch portably. The field of vision it's difficult to make some of those turns and anticipate.
It's very hard.
If you know it already, though, if you've played Burnout Paradise, wonderful way to play
maybe
it.
Turn off the day-night cycle. You can turn the day-night cycle
off. Yeah, I did.
Off.
I had to, because the night I just couldn't see clearly enough on 720p. So, and just the lower performance overall. But
yeah, the performance is good, but the screen quality, 720p I don't think is the problem. I think the screen quality is the problem.
Maybe, I don't know. I do notice in like games like Rain World, where it's very dark a lot of the time, it's best played on the TV typically.
Yeah, I think all of that has to do with the brightness and the color of the screen. The OLED model is probably perfect. Even at, I know you and I disagree on 720p, but it's the brightness of that screen is terrible. The colors do not come across very well.
Regardless, I think it's still a fun game to play mobile.
It is.
Because you're just
I played it
booking it sometimes.
Yeah.
And it feels like, I remember I was on the plane and I accidentally jerked forward because I was just going so fast and I just slammed into the car.
Yes, me too.
So it's an absolute delight of a game.
That is definitely a runner-up for me.
That's my favorite racing game now, period, I think.
Which you don't play many, right?
I don't play a lot.
I mean, it's one of the best.
Burnout 3 was previously my favorite, so it makes sense that Paradise is my favorite.
It does make sense because it's
better.
I think it's pretty universally regarded as one of the best racing games. Arcade racers, that is.
Yeah.
You definitely have to make that distinction for...
That's what I like to play. I don't like playing
I don't like the
Sims
simulators.
or anything like that.
Definitely not. Number one for me, though, is not...
A game I want to play.
Yeah, I won't say what I was going to say. It's Kingdom, Two Crowns. Last year, 2020, I played Kingdom New Lands. I wasn't able to finish it. I didn't get far enough. Excuse me.
Dun, dun, dun.
But I had to get that water in there. But this year, I picked up Two Crowns on Switch, which has a lot of content. It had, I think, 3 or 4... pretty major DLC packs, totally free. And this year they released, I really wish I had time to play it, in like November, December, they released a pretty large paid DLC for brand new land and a new theme. But I played through the majority of the game with the Shogun expansion, which is really just a new theme. There's some very slightly new mechanics. I think each thing has a unique mount, or maybe 2 unique mounts. But Kingdom, just the series in general, they're all doing the same thing, but they each add some slightly new mechanics. It's so serene, which is something that I saw myself experiencing a lot this year. Serene video games. Kingdom being one of the best in that regard. Something that just transports you to a new place. Something gorgeous. Everything about it. The mechanics, the visuals, the audio design, and I said mechanics. That's right. Really, just everything about it is such a peaceful and relaxing experience. The game is pretty simple enough. It's a 2D game. Which you'll see on the screen there. It's a 2D kingdom builder. You just expand your kingdom from left to right until you get to either end of the map. One end has the portal to hell. The other end has the dock to eventually build a ship and go to the next level. And then as you go to another level, you build this new kingdom. And you can, when you build the dock in that new place, you can either move forward or go back to your previous kingdom and take the new resources you have. So if in the second place you find iron, you can then bring that iron and start building up the stone walls and towers you have into even greater things in the first area. And the sort of trance-like state it puts you in, the music and the visuals, everything about it is amazing. I played it primarily on the Switch. Oddly enough, what I said about Burnout Paradise is not totally the truth because it is so bright. It doesn't have a lot that's particularly dark. It's all lit very well. The presentation, just like the depth, that 2D depth, the fog on the river, all of it does pop. And because it's light enough, I think it does work well enough in handheld. Of course, it looks gorgeous on a big 4K screen or UHD screen, rather. But it plays very well handheld. That would be my number one.
That's a great choice in a game I am dying to play. Let's move on. This one's going to be just for me. This is my favorite creative exercise inspired by a game. I do a lot of writing, a lot of other little weird creative exercises for myself. Keep those juices flowing. I think it's good for me, I like writing specifically. And I wrote this year a very weird, something I will never be able to replicate, essay on Everhood. If you've played Everhood, I'll put a link in the description. Go check it out. It's very bizarre. It's a nonfiction piece built by multiple colored texts talking to each other, including me, the narrator of this nonfiction thing I'm writing. It's very weird. It's one of the weirdest things I've ever written. But It summarizes a lot of how I feel about the game. So check that out. Little cool thing I wrote.
I didn't know that because I didn't read that.
Yeah, you should read it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. It's a little silly too. Definitely my own little style, but a couple cool little insights I think I found in there. So yeah, check it out. Cool. I'll put a link in the description. Next one. We're nearing the end. Best surprise. What's a game that was better than you expected, or maybe a little moment that caught you off guard? You know.
I have a lot of these, so I'll do a quick little spattering first.
Okay.
And that's with a bunch of smaller games I played last week. I talked about them. Unpacking. I was not expecting the heart that they were able to draw from that simple mechanic of literally taking something out of a box, a pair of underwear, a box of cereal, and putting it on the shelf or in the drawer. The narrative they're able to, or the character rather, that they're able to paint a picture of is really something awesome. Before Your Eyes, had no idea what that was until a week and a half ago. Picked it up on a whim and was blown away. I'm going to talk about this trend later, but just human narratives. And the big surprise from our indie, the biggest surprise from our sort of indie roundup last week was Ep.039. I've been interested in it all year. I think, or maybe it was last year that we saw the first demo of it, the first gameplay demo. Yeah, it looked cool, like something I would spend 45 minutes on. I was happy to pick it up, but I played through it twice and was just blown away by how, I'm going to overuse this word.
That's fine. Serene.
There's been a few experiences like that this year that just have not compared to any other year. This is up there. The music, actually the music is very good in this game. Sparse, but when it does chime in is incredible. Like folky instrumental stuff while you're on space that just creep out of nowhere. And then I mentioned the water level really makes you feel like you're Matthew McConaughey.
Which is really how everyone wants to feel.
Maybe. I mean, he's a very interesting character. He should be our number one character from 2021.
Oh, yeah. We love you, Matthew. Our new mayor.
No. Unfortunately not. No, he said no.
He said no.
Yeah. But I was not expecting it to do anything that it did achieve, anything that it achieved. So Ep.039 will be my true number one there.
So I have some easy ones here. Faith was a pretty easy pick for me. Again, it's that Atari style graphics. I thought it was just gonna be like a quirky little indie game with a couple good ideas, but it really showed, again, I'll say it again, just some chops, some horror chops from these guys. This team that made it, they scared me quite a few times. The way
I was blown away.
Yeah, they use these sounds, and they do, of course. It's not something that could actually run on Atari, I don't think. Like, there's a couple little moments that are like, okay, that's a little bit too much, but even so, most of it is just that pure old school Atari style graphics, and they communicated horror to me. Wow, good job. So that's my honorable mention for myself.
Okay. Another pick here for me is Hot Wheels Unleashed. I've had several conversations this year that just the people are looking at me like I'm a freaking idiot, like I'm a lunatic talking about a Hot Wheel game at the age of 28. Listen, first of all, no one expected there to be a Hot Wheels game this year, and no one expected it to be a honest to goodness real freaking video game. It's so damn good and incredibly fun, incredibly difficult. The physics engine is great. You are literally a toy car on a track. If you don't have enough momentum as you go around go over the loop, you'll just fall. Or if you haven't made it quite far enough, you'll slide back. And then you've got to respawn back there to get some more speed. If you use your boost in a particular direction while you're on a jump, you're going to completely miss hitting the track. No part of it is on rails. if you're boosting too much, even over a slight dip, you're going to hit that. And if you don't let go of your boost, you might completely miss the small little rails on the Hot Wheels plastic track, because that's what it is. Most of it is just those plastic tracks. And then also, it's probably the most visually impressive game this year. I think it is actually far and away the most visually impressive game this year. In terms of its photorealism, there are things that are more artistically impressive, but in terms of its like technical prowess, it's pretty stunning. The sticker, now I played it on PS5, playing it on Switch, probably not going to get any of this, but you can see the material, you can see that each different kind of plastic is in fact a different kind of plastic. You can see the pewter on the bottom of the car that is different than the plastic on the wheels, than the plastic that's used on the windows or on the side of the car. When you finish a race, the idea is that you are a kid playing with these cars. There's little nicks and chips out of it. There's actual fingerprints on the car. You can see fingerprints on the cars. You can see air bubbles on the track where the stickers are, or even on some of the cars.
So awesome.
It's incredible. I had no clue that this was, first of all, going to happen at all, and be an actual freaking video game. It's great. I love that Hot Wheels happened.
Hot Wheels. I should have brought my little Luigi Hot Wheels car, because it's the scariest thing I've ever seen. Like,
it's gross.
His nose is the hood. It's very disturbing.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Why do you own that?
I just found it, man, that we were waiting for a concert to start, and there's a little toy store next door. I'm like, whatever, we'll waste some time. And I found that, and I said, yeah, this is what I want from the store. It's like official Hot Wheels. Anyway, my number one pick is Sacrifices Must Be Made. itch.io, little demo game made in a game jam by Daniel Mullins. It is the prototype, basically the initial concept for what would become Inscription this year. I played it. I was watching a Ragnarok's video where he's going through a bunch of itch games, and he found this, and I played it and thought, wow, this is so good. And he just made it in 3 days. Daniel Mullins is a force. He's really good at making video games. If you haven't played Pony Island or The Hex or anything, please. And play Inscription. Oh my gosh, play Inscription. So it surprised me immensely. I played the demo 3 times. Just a little demo that it was. It's not even a demo. It's really just like a short little concept game. It has a beginning, middle, and end. But played it all the way through 3 times. That's a good game.
I did not play the demo. I played the full game. But awesome. Yeah, that was. I didn't even know about the game until you told me about it. And again, I wish you would have told me about it, because I bought Pony Island on release day and I have not played it.
It's fun. I had a blast.
It's like 4 or 5 years old at this point.
Yeah, I played it right after the demo. I was like, this guy's good.
Yeah, we would have made a full episode on his games, but alas, a lack of communication. My number one surprise, you've heard me talk about it a few times already if you are a regular listener, and that is milk inside a bag of milk inside a bag of milk. Yes. And then its sequel, Outside a Bag of Milk. So I found this game completely by accident in a very silly way. We often use How Long to Beat, a very good tool if you got a lot of games in your backlog. It gives you an aggregate of how long it is to play the game generally. If you're a completionist, if you want to do some of the extra content, it tells you how long a game is. So we use that to plan our schedule. And we were playing Inside for the horror series. And I type in Inside. Of course, it shows me that from Playdead. But it also shows me milk inside a bag of milk inside a bag of milk. 25 minutes. What a stupid ass title. Makes complete sense after playing it, but I sort of wrote it off. And then about a week later, I was picking something else up on Steam. And I was like, sure, I got 20 minutes. That's outrageous. What a dumb title. So I type it in, realize it's 99 cents, and absolutely, of course I'm going to buy that, and immediately played it. I had no idea, one, that I would be interested in a visual novel. I've tried a couple in the past and deleted them almost immediately. but this just it's handling its themes in what I think is a pretty mature way, a very interesting way, and I didn't sign up for that, and I'm so happy that I knew nothing about it. Huge surprise. You heard me talk about a sequel last week, so I'm not going to harp on it, but discovering the milk games. What a dumb sentence I just said.
Discovering the milk games.
Yes. Please try those out if you like visual novels. They're not for everybody, but they definitely weren't for me. But I discovered something that was wholly unique.
It's definitely one of those interesting games this year, I think, that has been brought up. So next is our second to last category for this section of the video, and that's best moments. We couldn't pick 3, so there's a top 5, unordered except for the first pick, but there is a pick 0.
Well, let's talk about that last.
Okay,
totally last.
Yeah, we'll talk about pick 0 last. There's kind of a universal well-duh pick for us. But let's go through our first 4 picks before we get to our personal number 1 picks. So I'll start. For me, the first pick comes from Returnal. Fantastic video game. And I'm not going to say the spoilers here, but there's a moment, anybody who's played it knows, halfway through the game, you beat the third major boss, and there's a very long, there's a sequence about a very long section of time that happens. It's kind of the big reveal of the game, and there's a big drop, and kind of mic drop there. And I was stunned. I had to stop playing for a second. Everything changes after this. I just put the controller down. I'm like, okay, I'm going to come back to this. Like, seriously, as a storytelling moment, it rivals, any other big reveal that you can think of in film or video games. It's done so elegantly and so subtly. And the weight of it really hits you after it hits. So if you haven't played Returnal, don't want to spoil it for you. If you have, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful moment.
Why don't you just do your full 4? I'll do my full 4, and then you do your 1.
Wonderful. My next one, the baby from Resident Evil 8. That is the most horrifying thing I've seen potentially ever. I would put it up in my top 3 scariest moments in any media ever. I was genuinely chilled by that moment. The first time it comes around the screen, and a big bonus to that is the elegance of they're getting you familiar with this space, so you're not at a complete loss bumbling around like an idiot when you're running away from this thing. I felt enough in control to be scared, and I think that's very key for horror game development. And they nailed it, and you should have seen my wife's face. I wish I could have recorded it. She, just pressed up back against the couch. It was like, oh my god. And, under the covers, she literally, asked me when I was hiding under the bed, can we just play this tomorrow? Because it was late. It was 11 p.m. Can we just play this tomorrow? She was so scared. Wonderful, wonderful moment.
Yes.
It'll stick with me for a long time. Next for me is a moment from Everhood. We talked about it last week, so I won't elaborate too much. But after you discover your ability, and this isn't too big a spoiler, happens halfway through the game. If you want, you can stop and skip, 30 seconds. But in 1, 2, 3, you get your arm, which lets you be able to kill the other inhabitants. And you're not sure if it's the right choice to make. And throughout the whole game, you're never quite sure if it's the right choice to make. But you stumble across your friend, your companion who's been with you for this whole time in the game, who was separated from you after you got your arm back. And he's very scared and concerned. He doesn't know how to feel. He can't walk. And he just goes, you know what? I trust you. And it's this moment of the moment you have to make in your own life of who are you going to trust about death and what that means and what could potentially happen afterwards. You'll never be 100% sure, but this little moment of intimacy between these two characters saying, I trust you. And then the weight that puts on you, to make that decision, that he fully puts that in your hands, because he trusts you. It's just a really good moment in a game about the significance of death and moving on. Really beautiful little moment. And my last unordered pick is from Psychonauts 2. There's a moment where a bunch of these puppets have in this person's mind have been criticizing him, judging him. It's a food making contest, very silly. They're the judges, and they're calling out a bunch of stuff that he's basically. And they look like his friends. So it's his image of his friends in his mind, and he believes they are holding him accountable and judging him for things that aren't really in reality his fault. A very common thing that happens for all human beings, right? We hold ourselves accountable for things that others would immediately forgive us for, right? And it's their image of them. And as you finally beat the boss, which are these 3 puppets, he lifts the puppet off of his hand. And it's like, it's full zoom in on the puppet as it is, the full creature, as if you're just fighting it. And he pulls the puppet
off. Like a giant...
hand puppet.
Yeah, like Godzilla-sized hand puppet.
And he pulls it off his hand after you beat them, and he gets competent. And over time, he's needed you to do it for him, and then he helps you, and then he's doing something on his own fully. Like, you're leading him to the point where he's confident enough in himself and competent enough to take control again. And he takes the puppet off his hand and starts ordering the stage again and bringing everyone. Okay, good. That's a wrap, everyone. Let's go back. Like, he's the director. He's in control again. He's taking control back from those puppets.
Also, the transition of the view from being the full-size boss that you're fighting, he takes it off, and it's just in front of you. He's just in front of you, his hand,
and you're right there next to him. It's like, that's an example of how editing can tell a story. Like, it's so good.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's definitely that was the moment that stood out to me the most about Psychonauts 2. I really I ate that up. That was so good.
Yeah.
So what are your 4 unordered picks, Tyler?
So first of all 4 of those were on my very large list.
Of course.
I keep a list over the year. So it was hard for me to pick a lot of these. I think the only one that didn't hit as hard for me was the transition in Returnal, the middle of Returnal.
Yeah, you had quite a hump to overcome at that point.
Yeah, I got there. I didn't play after that. Sure. I quit Returnal. I set it down as the worthy foe that it was.
Sure.
So anyway, all of those were also on my list. Very awesome moments. So I did want to choose some other things here. Number 5, I guess, being the ash. No order here. So my bottom 4. The ashtray maze in Control. As much of a disappointment as that was, the ashtray maze is just an impeccably presented set piece. I'm not one typically to shout out giant awesome set pieces, though that is changing, especially, no spoilers for you, but check out Jacob Geller's video on Dead Space 2. Incredible.
Oh yeah, I have intentionally not watched it because I've never played Dead Space 2.
I got some friends to talk me out of saying that Dead Space 2 was better than the first one. Oliver and basically his girlfriend at the time argued me out of that and said, no, for all these reasons, Dead Space 1 is better. And then I just internalized that. But it's not true. If I'm true to myself, Dead Space 2, man.
I'm very excited to play.
So good. Yeah, it's on our list. It's on our short list for this year. But impeccably created set piece here with the ashtray maze. You have to. So back to just how weird this game is. Control. The most powerful figure in the old house, which is the government building that maintains all of the supernatural stuff that happens, is the janitor. And he listens to this Sony Walkman that transports him to new realms. Like, he can just walk down a hallway, but while he's listening to his cassette Walkman, he walks into a new universe, basically. And there's just this stupid hallway that leads to like a ritzy New York hotel.
The reds,
foyer.
The golds, like the tawdry golds.
You know it as soon as you see it. You know what it is. The ashtrays that are sitting there. It's the smoker's lounge, and there's nothing there. Maybe there's a chest. It doesn't matter. But you find that earlier on in the game, and then you walk away. But you finally are given the Walkman, and you go back to this place. And as you walk through, this music is blaring because you have to put on the headset, the the headphones, and the walls start folding in. They start to open up, but basically a new universe. Sort of like that scene in Inception. All the buildings start to fold in on each other, and or even more recently, Doctor Strange and No Way Home. Just this impossible geometry,
fractals of
this
buildings.
impossible geometry starts to fold in on itself, and you're flying around, and it's the one time you really get to use the flying to its best ability. And I had turned on by that point, because I was so tired of the mechanics, I just thought, I don't think it's a very good game. I had turned on the accessibility options to give me unlimited ammo, one-shot KOs, and you're just blasting through that like an absolute monster while everything is happening around you. It's incredible. Unlike, I've played it 3 or 4 times. I've gone back to play just that section 3 or 4 times this year, just randomly pick it up again. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Next, we have the house in Returnal. This is not a huge spoiler. It pops up pretty early, but this hit pretty hard for me because of the way Returnal opened for me. So this likely didn't happen for many other people, but the levels are randomly laid out like Hades. Each room is handcrafted, but the way it's shuffled around and the pool it's pulling from every run is different. So the first room I walked into, well, I guess the second one, because the first one is almost always a long pathway. And sometimes there's a door to the right of that long pathway, but I think that first room is almost always the same. So technically the second room I walk into is a room that doesn't appear often. It's pretty rare. It's this bizarre gelatinous sphere floating in the middle of this room. And you can shoot it. It starts to chip away and get smaller, but nothing you can do deals enough damage to it before it sort of regenerates its shape. I don't know what that is. Do you know what it is? It never sort of revealed itself to you?
Nope.
All right. So immediately I was pulled into this game. It felt incredible. And that stuck with me for a while. And then finally I get to the house. Just the farmhouse that shows up in the middle of this level. And that is when everything about this game really solidified itself for me. The way it's trying to tell a story, the bizarre nature of everything it's showing you. Finding the house for the first time was a big deal for me. And I loved it. We have a more recent moment here, being the very small spoilers here for Sable. It's hard to spoil Sable, but this one it is, I guess, if you're really a stickler for that. So skip ahead just a few seconds. As you transition from the tutorial area, building your glider for the first time, building your first glider, and transitioning out of the sort of alcove that your tribe lives in currently. The transitioning through the mountain, the symbolism of it is very obvious, which is fine. It's very on the nose with that, but I'm okay with that. I don't think it was particularly cheap, but one of the main tracks from the game, one of the lyrical tracks, Feels Like Flying, I believe it is, starts playing. As you get on your glider for the first time, you sort of say goodbye to your tribe and your family, and you make it out. You're all alone on these dunes, and there's just so much to see. And as I sort of alluded to last week, so much to feel in this game. While that track is playing, it's that transition. That's a little master stroke right there. And I was very happy to be able to play that. And finally, in this short list, we have a moment from Psychonauts 2 as well. I do think technically everything about that The moment Zach shared is better. That transition, pulling off the glove, is amazing. But this hit home for me a little harder. The Helmet Full Bear story arc. You start by being a little kid that doesn't really listen to authority. You activate a vending machine of brains, just preserved brains, in a jar of brine. And like every other brain in Psychonauts, you can attach your little door to it and hop into it. And you're in a black void. You don't know what this brain is, or rather whose it is. And you're just walking around in this void. Hello, brain. Are you there? And in this black void, some light slowly starts to creep in. And you look over, and it's this ball of light slowly starting to form. And wake up. And it's Jack Black. And I honestly think this is probably the most emotional performance he's ever given. This is top-notch Jack Black. He is able to portray someone finding consciousness in a way that I would not expect, not just from him, but from anybody.
And he's like overstimulated and like trying to manage all of this input.
Yeah. You put the brain into somebody else, someone whose brain has gone missing, which is silly, but he's totally just burdened by closing an envelope, like just doing some simple stuff in a post office. And you eventually go back in to see what's wrong with him, and he's completely riddled with anxiety. And like every other enemy in Psychonauts that's sort of personified, and the emotion is something that you're fighting, or it's not even just an emotion. Like the grunts are sensors that block out other thoughts. So it's just sort of like the inner mechanisms of your psyche that make all the enemies. And so anxiety is introduced to you for the first time, and you can only beat it by slowing it down. You create this little time warp bubble, and then you can jump in and fight it because it's super fast, very sporadic. You can barely see it. And you're able to defeat anxiety, and he's okay for a while. But that continues again, and he regresses, and he wants nothing to do with consciousness. He tries to regress into his state of comatose. And that entire storyline, absolutely awesome. Really hits all of my buttons. And I was not expecting that performance from Jack Black. I thought it was really, really awesome.
He's fantastic.
He is.
Made me want to play Brutal Legend. That's a fun
We
game.
could do that sometime.
That's a fun game. I remember, I have very fun memories of that game. I remember it being a little rough, but like just a blast.
Yeah.
So for me, my number one pick is huge spoilers, so I won't say anything about it. You haven't even gotten there yet. There's a secret conversation in Disco Elysium at the very end of the game, after you've talked to kind of the primary ending character that you're talking with. There's an optional conversation, requires 2 checks. I would highly recommend you save Scum it because it's so worth it. But it sums up everything the game's about and has some of the best writing, I would argue, from anything I have ever read. I put it up there with some of my favorite passages from, Dostoevsky and Tolkien and Frederick Buechner. Just some of the most beautiful language ever put to paper. It's a really special moment. I hope that one day everyone will get to experience it. A hope that will never be fulfilled, but a hope I have nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm right incredible. There. I picked it up this morning because I was supposed to beat it before the break, but the break was much shorter, and I was trying to pack all these indie games in there. So I woke up this morning to play it. I am literally right there at the end. There's 2 checks you need to get into the end game. Everything else is blocked from you, and the rest of the hour or 2 that you have is just the railroaded end game, right?
After that section with Ruby, it's just you can't do anything but the end game.
Yeah, so I'm right there. I've saved at the entrance, and this is a pretty long podcast, so I might not do it tonight. It might have to be tomorrow morning. But we'll see. That's the next thing I'm playing before we start the game for the next episode.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
awesome.
beautiful
I'm
stuff.
excited for that.
What's your number one?
Number one is Komoshida's Palace from Persona 5. Persona 5 hit me really hard this year. I was not expecting to like it very much. It's really hard for me to like a JRPG. We tried playing dating simulators at the beginning. So we were supposed to have a walking sim and dating simulator episode, and we couldn't get into the dating sims. But that's a lot of what, that's like half of Persona 5. And that was the best part of the game to me.
Makoto understands me.
Sure. But then also just revealing all of its themes to you, both its mechanics, but its narrative themes. That's the biggest thing. It does all of that right there in the first, 10 hours or so? I mean, it's basically a full game in itself. I could easily go back and play Komoshida's Palace and call it a day or a week, rather. But opening the first act of Persona 5 was incredible. It nails all of its themes, both visually, narratively, mechanically, everything it's doing. It's a near perfect opening, I think. And yeah, that whole bit of the game has stuck with me for quite a while.
Couldn't agree more. That game's incredible.
It's
and
really
that the whole
awesome.
palace. Just how gross some of the stuff in there is.
Yeah.
It's so well done.
Even the boss fight.
Oh, it's so good.
You don't get many people that... I mean, we joke a lot, like Japan just does not care, which they don't.
No.
not in the way that Western audiences and creators sort of censor themselves. You would not get that here.
No, and it's so raw and so well presented, so respectfully presented too. I think it's, they
think so.
They really handle that delicately, but also forcefully. It's very good. But our number 0 pick, our collective pick, is one that we can't explain to you
because it's very hard.
Ruin the whole experience for you if you haven't played it. But if you have, it's every moment in Outer Wilds.
Pretty much.
Outer Wilds is built on delivering these kinds of moments, on bringing you to these revelations and moments of wonder and splendor, and every moment. So if you haven't played it, play it, please, because we can't talk about it without ruining the whole experience. So we don't even want to risk you going, no, it's fine, I'll just listen. Like, it's that it will be ruined. You'll never be able to experience it the way it's supposed to be. Please just play this game. If you want to know more, though, go check out our episode on Outer Wilds. It's a good game.
Definitely do check it out.
So we come
go play it
to finally the best of the year for our year, not 2021, but our 2021. We will start in a unique way. Tyler will be delivering the I don't have really a word for it. The neglected the games that. Sure, they're not going to be as good as these top 3 games, but they deserve
a bit of conversation. Yeah.
Yes. So why don't you start with number 3, and then I'll go to number 3, and then 2, 2, 1, 1.
Yeah. So typically these would be personal picks, but Zach and I fully agree. Even the order 3 to 1, we agree those are the best. So I'm just going to talk about some other stuff, and Zach will use his pretty words.
May that be specially noted. We never do this. We fully agree on what the best 3 games we played this year are in the exact order that we have them.
Without question. Like, we didn't even have to argue about it. We weren't like, do you just want to sort of make this concession so we can have these 2 sections? No, there's no question here.
Yeah,
so I'll just talk about one sort of underrepresented game, at least this year. Risk of Rain 2. This would have been on our Game of the Year list last year. It probably would have not. What was number 3?
It's something Final Fantasy 7 or something.
Yeah, we said it may have knocked off Final Fantasy 7.
I'm
right?
sure. No, it definitely did. For me, it even is a contender for Last of Us Part 2.
It wouldn't have been for me. I would have made that case because I made the case for number 1, but I made the concession for Hades because all of our friends also loved Hades.
Yeah,
so
it
much.
was.
But no, it would not have taken Last of Us 2 for me. However, we didn't have time. I wasn't even interested in it really last year, but I picked it up this year and went really hard in Risk of Rain 2. I think it is a absolutely wonderful multiplayer game, as we mentioned earlier. Definitely find some friends to play it with, though it's great by yourself.
Yeah, great solo.
I played it by myself a lot. But also, this was even more so than another one I'll talk about next, an incredibly peaceful game, which makes no sense.
It's a very interesting soundscape overall.
I don't even just mean the sound. I mean the gameplay as well. It's so hectic and difficult to play, but once you're there, once you break that and nothing else exists around you, it is actually... I played it to relax, which if you're looking at the game does not make sense, and I'm a psychopath. But if you play the game, I think it'll make complete sense. It was probably one of the most relaxing games I played this year.
That's so weird.
Which is weird.
No, but it makes sense. Totally
so that's my number 3.
So our number 3 for the whole year that we played is Persona 5. And this is an easy pick for us. Honestly, it would easily be number 1 any other year, but Tyler mentioned to me the other day that there's never going to be a year like this in the podcast again, where we hit 3 genuine masterpieces, like of this caliber. And Persona 5 wins for all the reasons that you know. Listen to our episode. The story, the characters, the different loops interacting with each other, the social loop combined with the combat and dungeon loop. Everything is so well put together. Absolutely delightful game. Play it. If you want the full breakdown, we have 2.5, 3 hours on it. Just go listen there. But it's number 3 easy.
Easy. Yeah. As you mentioned, I don't think there'll ever be another year we play like this, because if we saw all of these games in a, Game Informer's next top 10 of all time, there'd be no question.
There'd be no surprise.
No surprise at all. Even if it's, any of these games are anybody's number 1 of all time, I wouldn't even sort of, scoff at it. I would scoff at something like Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't try to make an argument. I'm not going to be an asshole about it, but I would definitely...
But one of these 3 games...
no, there's no question. These are at the top of their craft. And actually, I want to take a moment to talk about Persona 5 just for a moment as well. Unlike the next 2 games you're going to talk about, I think Persona 5 is probably one of the most lovingly crafted games ever made, even more than Disco. As much as we've talked about Disco and Outer Wilds, I don't think there is another team that is given such a budget and has such clout and does not censor themselves. And I don't just mean with the kind of content they cover, but just the weird ideas. I've said it is so self-indulgent, which in a lot of contexts would be a negative statement. But here, everything they want to do is achieved here, especially in the Royale version. I really do think it is such a work of love, unlike probably any game that I've experienced.
It's a 100-hour game I want to play again.
Yeah,
that's a statement.
That's crazy.
That's a statement.
Number 2 for me, I have already mentioned in this episode, and that is Kingdom 2 Crowns. Another very peaceful game, but oddly enough, I found to be a little more stressful than Risk of Rain. But everything it's doing there, the music, the visuals, the mechanics, even like the way you collect money in that game. When you pick up a coin, a little bag pops up in the top right corner, or whichever top right, I think, and money falls into it. But there's never a number there. Just money falls into this bag. Cool. You obviously have money to buy a thing. I'll go ahead and buy this thing. And you start picking up money. This empty bag fills up, and it starts to get a sort of, mound of money on top of it, sort of poking out of the bag. And as you're picking up more money, it reveals itself to be a physics-based coin purse. So coins there's no limit to the number of coins, but if like a coin starts falling and it sort of like randomly flips, if it sort of gets nudged in vertically, it's going to stay there. If another coin hits that vertically nudged coin, it's going to flip off and fall off into the river. Or maybe it'll fall off on the street and a homeless person will come and pick it up. And you can go collect taxes from that guy later and get that money back after you've spent money to create room in your purse. It's really interesting. And it doesn't ever tell you that. It doesn't ever tell you how to recharge the stamina from your horse. All of it's very intuitive and is just such a lovely place to be, which is another thing we'll talk about. But number 2 for me.
Number 2 overall is Disco Elysium. Literally any other year would be number 1 easy. Like it's a shame it's at a number 2, honestly. But number 1's just that good. Again, all the reasons we've talked about: the dialogue, the writing, the world, the way that they. If you go listen to our episode on it, we talk about the thought cabinet, the way it takes the way you play and turns it into a mechanic with a reward and a negative. Like, I mean, you have to internalize these thoughts, and that often comes with a negative. Sometimes the reward is negative. Getting sober is entirely negative in that game. It's just, relevant here. Very unique. Nothing like it. Beautiful. Please play it. Oh my God, it's so good.
All those things. Absolutely. Number 1 for me is a bit contentious between the two of us. You think this game is an utter piece of trash.
That's not true.
I know it's not true.
I think it's a good game.
I know it's not true. It just did not resonate
just didn't
with
love
you.
it as much as you.
I absolutely love Yoku's Island Express. It does not receive enough love because barely anybody knows about that game. But it is a fully realized Metroidvania game, smaller in respects to a lot of them, but has a full map, does anything else a Metroidvania game does with its item gating, though you get sort of new skills, not necessarily items, but just new ways to play. Some new things are unlocked, and you go and do those things elsewhere in places you couldn't reach before. So it does everything, big open map as well, does everything that a Metroidvania game is doing. However, its mode of transportation is pinball. Every room, the entire map is traversed by playing pinball. It's such an incredible idea. You're this very cute little dung beetle, and instead of rolling a ball of dung, you're rolling a ball of mail, and you deliver mail. That's it. And it's so charming. All of the characters are so charming. And I had probably actually the most fun with any video game I played this year. I think even more than It Takes Two. I think the most fun I had this year was playing Yoku's Island Express.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know it is, but something about it just really hit home with me. I want more people to play that game. Very happy I got to play it. Yeah, so that's number 1 for me. What is number 1 for the world?
For everything, it's Outer Wilds, obviously. It's if you've heard us talk about it, it's just so obvious. Outer Wilds has accomplished something no other game I've ever experienced has accomplished. It is totally unrepeatable. It is entirely based on the knowledge you gain by exploring this world and experimenting and just being in this incredible space. It's a game about things ending and that being okay. It's a game about the drive of living and wanting to learn as much as we can, and the importance of that, and then just simple beauty. There's nothing like it. The emotional reward, the gameplay reward. You will feel so smart playing this game. Like, you'll bang your head against something, and then just every world is built so that you can learn how it works. You're supposed to understand how each planet works and interacts with itself. And the more you study it and watch it, the more you know. And you can discover new things and push further and further and further. There's nothing like Outer Wilds. There's no game like it. If you want to hear a full breakdown, obviously listen to our episode. But this is a game that is so special, it's almost sacred. It's a game that when I recommend to someone, I don't just recommend it to anyone. I get to know them, and I realize what kind of games they're interested in and what they like. And if I think they'll appreciate it, I go, hey, there's something special I want to share with you.
Yeah.
Something you'll never get back. Something that you'll only have once. But it's all the more beautiful for it. This game is brilliant. And I mean that in the Einstein way. Brilliant. Everything about it is wonderful.
I agree. And it's something, at least in our current state, we'll never be able to play again. And what I mean is, like, you become different people, I think, as you grow up. I might be able to play this game again in 30 years, 40 years, maybe. I will have to be a different person. I'll have to be sort of in a different phase of my life before I'm able to ever experience it again.
Yeah.
And it's never played anything like it.
Nothing like
it's quite possibly the best game ever made. Quite possibly.
It could be that. Easy. Yeah, this started off in my favorite games list.
Wait a minute. God of War, Tetris Effect, and Outer Wilds.
This is 2019, I think. I think it's 2019. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Which is sad because
Sekiro
came out in 2019. So that's a tough choice for someone like me. But I think an easy one if I think about it long enough.
Yes, an easy one.
Yeah, but all that to say, this game's so good.
It's so
good.
So good.
So yeah, Outer Wilds. So we've reached a time for a break. We're going to hit a little intermission segment after this, and then we'll jump back into more Game of the Year stuff. Thanks for sticking around. We will see you shortly.